Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Digital Today's podcast. I am Dave, and today I'm joined by ST Patrick. You guys know ST; he's a friend of the show, no stranger to the show. Welcome to episode 260.
How is everyone? Yes, I didn't know you were introducing me. Okay.
Trying to get to
I'm sorry
introductions.
about that.
That's all right.
Yes,
We'll get it.
excited
We'll
to be
get it.
here.
So we
Excited to
are
be here.
live on YouTube tonight, and in episode 260, we're talking about the future of the hobby. It's something that always comes up in different circles on Facebook, on Delphi, Tappa Talk, wherever you discuss it, conventions. People
Mhm.
are always talking
Right.
about what's the future of this hobby? Is it a dying hobby? Where are we going to be in 5 years? Where are we going to be in 10 years? And there's various opinions and various conversations about what is going on with the hobby. So we have ST on with me tonight. Ron is on assignment. Okay, Ron is on assignment tonight. I don't know what his assignment is, but he's on assignment. We may have a couple of other people joining us here tonight from time to time to jump in and talk about this. But ST, as you guys know, he does the Sports Sim magazine. He's created a game, Matchup Football, right? And he's working on maybe some other games as well that he may or may
Yes,
not
sir.
disclose tonight on the show. Uh, he
More than
just
happy
he,
to disclose.
he just got done is it IndyCon or IndianaCon, Indiana Jones Con or something like that?
IndyCon.
IndyCon. So it's a convention over there he had in is it Indianapolis, right?
It is. It was in Auburn, Indiana, which is
Okay,
our hometown right here, and we're about 2 hours northeast of Indianapolis.
okay, okay. And it's very similar to what we're going to be doing at Digital to DiceCon in Connecticut in 2 weeks. I can't believe it's 2 weeks away. We started talking about this XST like day one last August at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
I mean, seriously, we did this, and like that night we're out at dinner. I don't know if we were at, where did we go to breakfast? What was the place we went to breakfast?
Waffle House,
The Waffle House.
of
And
course.
I think we were talking about it there like the next morning, right? It's like we got to do something here on the East Coast.
Mhm.
So we've been talking about Digital to Dice Con, and that's coming up in 2 weeks. But anyway, that's ways to get a hold of us here. And we'll have some news on Digital to Dice Con too a little bit here tonight. And Mike and I are coming on tomorrow night, and we're going to have a lot more details of what's going on in 2 weeks, what you can expect. If you're a guest, if you're a special guest, if you have a table, we're going to have some thoughts on that. He's been talking to the hotel and the whole bit, so we'll try to get more details tomorrow night. I think what's going to happen there is. Right around 8 o'clock, the room opens up, and we want to get the people who have a table, are bringing the games, that are showing off games, creators, and I know Joseph Hetrick's in the room. I know he's got a baseball game and a book, and he's going to tell baseball stories. So those people get in the room 15 to 20 minutes early, like around 8 o'clock. We'll set up. So then when people come in around, maybe about 8:30, maybe a little before 8:30, we'll be set to go. So it's not just kind of craziness. So that's kind of the plan on that. But Michael's in the chat room here. We'll go over that tomorrow night when we have our game plan almost set. Anyway, ways to get a hold of us here at Digital to Dice. The website is digitaltodice.com, digitaltodice.com. The text line 978-751-DICE if you'd like to send us a text. Over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digital to dice, and our email digitaltodice@yahoo.com. All righty. So, ST, we hear this
Yes,
all the
sir.
time. I know we talked about it, in person with a lot of people back in August at Jeff's Hall of Fame football convention. I assume you guys talked about it at IndyCon. It's just a topic that comes up and everybody brings it up. What is the future of the hobby? And I'd like to start here. Okay, I'm fairly new to this. Okay, I think I came to this hobby in 2018, 2019. So it's only been about 7 years for me, tops, maybe six or seven. And since then, okay, since I joined, and there was talks about it back then too, because when I first started, one of the first episodes we did, one of the game developers shut down, and I think it was the Deep Drive company. They did Deep Drive baseball, Deep Drive hockey, I think it was, and I think episode 2 or 3 was about them closing. And so that was the first show that we really kind of did. And I was like, oh boy, did we join this party late? Is everyone shutting down? But here we are. I think we're in year 6 of the show, and we're in year 6 of the show. Okay. We have the James Cast. Okay. Another gaming podcast. We have
Right, the
your
Sportcast.
magazine. We have Sports Sim Magazine. Okay. So since I kind of jumped in 7 years ago, whatever it's been, we got two podcasts going in a magazine for the hobby, let alone all the new games that have been developed that people are playing. We have conventions and we have some new players in the community. I think the concern, from what I've heard, is that it's an older group of people doing this, and that at some point the younger group is not going to embrace this hobby, and going forward we're just going to die out like dinosaurs. So I think that's kind of been, I don't want to say the overall feeling about it, but I think people are concerned about that. So despite everything I said about the good, there is some bad about that. So why don't you chime in here?
I I've heard that, and I understand that perspective. I don't agree with that perspective. Um, I have long said, because when you talk about the future of the hobby at a conference or amongst your friends in the hobby, what you constantly keep hearing is, well, we need to bring in more kids. We need to bring in more kids. And I said, well, maybe it's possible that it's not as important to bring in more kids as it is to bring in more, I call them long term customers. So people who are going to be buying product for 30 to 35 years. Now, it doesn't matter necessarily that they start at 12 years old or 25 years old or even 30 years old. Um, if we can get more 30 to 35-year customers, I think the companies are in pretty good shape. And so I don't worry for the hobby as much, because I see a rise in certain sports. Still, the ratings are going up for certain sports. The ratings are going down for others, but that's, I mean, sports, like life, is a bit of a cycle. And you're going to see every so often an ebb, and every so often you'll see a flow. And I think what we're going to see, though, what we're seeing now isn't necessarily a falling of the hobby as much. It is a changing of the hobby. There are some of the older guys are starting to bow out, are starting to just not have the energy anymore to create games. I know classic college and pro basketball also shut down recently in the last 3 or 4 months. And that's okay, because I've also seen a lot of brand new games pop up as well from brand new people. And I do think that is a cycle that's going to happen as well. One day we will no longer have APA. One day we will no longer have Strat. Not in the way that we have it now. It will, I'm sure the brands will be around, but they will not be what they are now. And as much as I like them both, I think that's okay, because I think there is an immense amount of talent now working on games in our hobby, working on their own games in our hobby, not so much even as a company per se, but as a person. I, and with the help of Excel, with the rise of Excel, and now with the rise of AI, um, what used to take a company now takes a person, and you can produce a product that only a company could produce 30 years ago, 25 years ago, through things like the Game Crafter and drive through cards and all of these companies that also now make components as well. I I really don't worry about the hobby that much, in a sense that I think we're basically going through a cycle, and a cycle is going to go up and down, and it's going to go through a lot of change. And I think what we're experiencing now is that change. And I'm kind of excited about it. I kind of think it's okay. In fact, I kind of think it's positive.
So in this change you're talking about, where do you think we are in this change? Are we, okay, if you picture a circle, are we at the top of the circle? Are we at the bottom of the circle? Are we on the way up, or are we on the way down? Where would you put us right now?
if I tell you we're at the bottom of the circle, it's not a bad thing. What I mean by that is that we're at a place, I think, where, for example, we're still trying to decide as a sports country if we like soccer or not. Um, we're still trying
I've
to
been hearing that though
see.
since like the 70s.
Right, right. We're still
Honestly,
trying to
I was told
decide if we
in
like
this
baseball,
in the mid
which is
70s.
huge in the hobby.
Yeah.
It's the king of the hobby. But will it be the king of the hobby forever? I don't know. It's certainly the king of the hobby now. We
Yeah.
had a poll in a few issues ago in the magazine, and baseball still pulled at the top by far for the sport that everyone plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that will last at least another 20 years. But the NFL is awfully popular now in mainstream society,
Right.
and I think you might just see the gaming hobby lagging behind because we're aging, and so 20-year-olds who might not be into dice games or board games or tabletop games now might be into them in 10 to 20 years, whenever they also do what a lot of us have done as well and say, oh gosh, I work all day on computer. When I come home, I want to roll some
I
dice.
hear that from a lot of people. Is that I'm on my computer all day. I want to turn off my computer and get on the tabletop. I do. I hear that all the time.
Now, that's not to say, and I want to point this out, that's not to say that there aren't some wonderful computer games out there. I think for computer games, Action PC um, is phenomenal in every single way, and I think they are leading the pack. And uh, so for computer games, because I hear a lot of even older guys than us saying, well, I don't work on computer all day, so it's just so much easier for me to just hit an enter button or a space bar or a mouse click, and I I can play more games in a shorter amount of time, and I like the computer thing. So I kind of think we're all going through a cycle of some sort. I mean, and I think that your story actually of just deciding that you can no longer do this
Yeah.
um, is a story as well. And it's a story that's happening to probably more and more people all the time. In fact, I think that being in the gaming world and having the gaming world be so popular from the time that you and I were in junior high school until now sort of helps the board gaming world. It helps, the tabletop world. I just got an email from Gen Con last week, which is the largest tabletop board gaming conference in the country. It's going to be in Indianapolis in July. And they are expecting the largest crowd they've ever had.
Really?
I think that bodes well. I think COVID, and this is going to sound insane to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
COVID was fantastic for a couple of things. The RV, the RV industry skyrocketed, but also hobbies. All hobbies experienced holiday type sales
Mm-hmm.
for like 2 years
Oh yeah. Yeah.
every month. That's not a bad thing for the hobby. It was a tough era that I would, if we could go back and not do it, I'd rather go back and not do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But it was great for hobbies. And a lot of people got back into their hobbies and got more excited about their hobbies. So I'm actually seeing, and the conferences, right? The conferences right now are doing extremely well. Where 10 years ago, I'm not so sure that would have been the case. I know in Colorado, you and I are both going to be in Colorado, and he's expecting the largest crowd he's ever had out there. So if someone would like to make the argument of, well, this hobby is kind of trending downward, I'd like to hear it, but I I don't think that you can judge that day by day. I think you're going to go through changes, and what I'm seeing now is a lot of phenomenal talent, and a lot of guys that you've had on the show, a lot of phenomenal, smart talent is out there doing wonderful things, and I think that bodes extremely well.
I think again the concern is that when you look at people that are at these conventions and you look at
Hmm.
the people that are playing these games and they're posting their results on Delphi and Facebook and wherever else, it's an older crowd. Okay, it's definitely senior citizen day at the market. It really is, and they look and they're looking at the younger people, and everybody's like this. Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah,
That's what the
yeah.
younger guys are doing, and so the concern is that you know they were even talking about speaking about this. Okay, the Xbox, I guess, is raising their prices, and people are saying it's gonna kill Xbox, which is the big
Mhm.
we all know what Xbox is. Okay, it's basically a big Atari 2600. Just kidding,
Yes.
um, but they're saying
Right.
how jeepers, if you're gonna be paying $600 or $700 just for the Xbox and then $80 a game, it's like a lot of people are gonna be getting rid of that and going to the PC. And so even video gaming is changing a bit because people are either going to play on their phones, their iPads, or their PC, and they're not going to buy a console to play video games, which is
Mhm.
only for video games. Whereas your phone and your iPad, you can do many more things besides play games, and the same with your computer. So you can justify a really nice computer, for work or for whatever it is your hobbies or whatever it is you're doing here, and it's not just locked in for video games. So I was following that a little bit myself over the last few weeks. How just the gaming industry is changing, and the consoles might be on the decline now. So
Mhm.
the many years that Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo, if you will, dominated living rooms, that might be on its way down too. I'm not saying coming to an end, but people are
Mhm.
not going to go and shell out that kind of money just for a gaming system when they can play on their phone or their computer now. So a lot of things seem to be changing as well. So it's not just just with our hobby here. And again, I think the number one reason that people are concerned with the hobby is that the age of the people we're talking about here, and are the younger people playing? And as I just said, younger people are on their phones. Now, in the chat room here, we have a few people that are saying that they know younger people, like Joe was saying. He loves his godson, loves the Strat cards and dice set. Now he's hooked. I think that's one thing that we had talked about here on the channel with some people is how do you get these games into the hands of young people?
Mhm.
That's like the big thing because I have only played with a handful of people that weren't in the hobby, and one who was my uncle's older than me had no interest in it at all, and yet there's a couple other people that I played that were like, wow, this is great. No computer, no cell phone, me and you across the table talking, having fun, just rolling dice, figuring out ourselves what the result is instead of being told what it is. And so generally, people responded pretty well when you grabbed them, sat them down in the chair. But just to say, hey, you're going to get this game? No. But I mean, if you exposed them to it, some people were, it was a warm response, is what it was. It
Mhm.
was not like, oh, I hate it, but it wasn't they fell in love. But I mean, how do you do that? How do you get kids away from their phones and paying attention on the table? Back in the 70s when we played the parlor
Yeah.
games, when we played, Parcheesi and Shoots and Ladders and all that other stuff, you didn't have the phones. You didn't have all the distractions. You didn't have the internet. So when you're sitting there, when Happy Days got over, if you didn't want to watch Laverne and Shirley, you pulled out Clue and you played Clue. It's a very
That's right.
different world from back then. Now the board games went away largely. When the video game consoles come out in the late 70s, early 80s. But then you started to see a resurgent now. There's a lot of little shops opening
Yeah.
up even in my area that sell dice, that sell games.
Exactly.
The Gathering is a big one. There's still some
Mhm.
Dungeons and Dragons players. Yeah, the Elden Signs or whatever. There's all these games. ID Jester. We all know ID Jester. He unboxes
Mhm.
stuff all the time, and he gets these boxes in like this.
Yeah.
And these
Yeah.
games are like a couple $100, and he opens them up, and there's like 1,000 pieces in there, and people play these things, and they get in there. Again, it's a smaller group of people that do it, but they've slowly made a comeback. I feel, and I think maybe our hobby's kind of on that same path.
Yeah. I think the tabletop. the tabletop board gaming industry right now in volume is probably at an all-time high. I mean, you do see these stores popping up all over the place. Um, and the amount of games that people that we know play, I mean, games I've never heard of because there's so many out there
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah,
It's no longer a case where it's, 10 board games. It's Risk, it's Monopoly, it's Life, it's you know it's not like that anymore at all. There are, thousands upon thousands of board games now, and the board game conferences are quite popular, which I think is wonderful for our hobby. Even if they're not necessarily into sports yet, they are into liking board games and liking dice and liking sort of being in control of characters and being in control of what they're doing. And I think a lot of sports fans, when they get older, uh, really do get nostalgic. I mean, are there a lot of 22-year-olds playing sports tabletop games right now? I'm going to guess no.
hmm
But I don't recall being very nostalgic at 22. Uh, I think we do have to be a little older to be nostalgic. I'm very nostalgic about the 1980s in every way possible. And I was probably not that way in 1991, in 1992. Time had to happen. You know, growing had to happen. My need to slow down in life had to happen, and to
yeah,
enjoy every day, and to just want to immerse myself in my past in a lot of ways, in music, in sports, in reading, in comics, in, oh my gosh, in almost every way. That's why I say I wouldn't panic yet about 12-year-olds not being that much into these games, or 18-year-olds, or even 22 to 25-year-olds. I think we get a lot of guys in their 30s who come into it for the first time. I really do. And almost to a man, I don't think I've ever showed anyone a game like this and they've said, "Nah, I just don't like it. I don't like it at all." I think they're always pretty impressed by the hobby. And I think because they think of sports games as EA Sports or Madden, where it's not really realistic, even if it uses real names. And so to actually be able to play uh, Clay Dreslough's games and Joe Bryan's games and Keith Avalon's games and Strat and Appa and all these games, and to see realistic lineups and realistic results and realistic scores, and to see Michael Jordan being Michael Jordan, even if you're not talented at the game, even if you're not skilled at the game. To be able to see this, I think, for someone who has just started to become nostalgic, is like watching magic happen. And that's when you fall in love with the hobby. But you
yeah.
have to almost fall in love with your own nostalgia as well.
Now, Enzo brings up a point that Ron's always talking about. And he says, kids today will want to see Aaron Judge come to life again. And Ron talks about this all the time. He says, in 5 or 10 years, when, the kids that are, late teenagers, early 20s, when they get up near 30, they're going to want to see Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes on their
Mhm.
tabletop or in their games when they retire. Because you can play Madden now and it's great. You got Mahomes and the whole bit. But, if you're, like I said, Tom Brady fan, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, you can't play those guys anymore in the video games. But
Mhm.
you can on your tabletop or on
That's
on the
right.
sports sim games. You got the football mogul. You can go back and play any season. Action PC sports football. You can go back and play any season. And so you can go back and relive those plays. And that's one thing Ron always said is at some point the younger people are gonna want to play that. They're gonna get older like we are. I'm not saying they'll be our age yet, but they might be like, I don't I don't follow any of these new guys. Like I couldn't tell you, how many guys in the NHL. I'm at the rink every day, and I hear people talking about, oh, how about that guy in the Winnipeg Jets, and how about that guy on the Carolina Panthers or Hurricanes, whatever the team's in his name's called now. I don't know any of their names. Seriously, I know a couple of the Bruins in McDavid, and that's
Mm.
about it. And when I say, oh yeah, well that guy there that got the hat trick, I says never heard of him, you know. But at some
Yeah,
point, those guys are going to want to play those guys you're talking about
absolutely.
today, and they won't be able to do that on the console for very long. So
Absolutely.
I wonder if like I say, if that's part of it. There is going back and playing your childhood years or your childhood heroes,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
this is one way to do it. It really is. Um,
Well, and I would also ask you a question. You've been in this now for how many years? 6 years, is that right?
let's call it 7 to 8 years is
Okay, 8 years.
when I come over.
Do you feel like you do you feel like you love the hobby more now, or do you feel like you love the hobby more 8 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. I love it more now than I did. Now when I
Right.
come in, I've kind of gone
Lights.
through a oh boy, lights out at the Patrick House. Holy, are you paying the bills over there, guys? Buy
Man,
his magazine, buy his football game. He can't even afford to keep the lights on.
I'll tell you what happened is my laptop just ran out of battery and my light behind the phone was hooked into the laptop. So, um,
Are you plugged in now? You gonna you
things, yeah, no, the phone's fine. I mean, it's hooked in to power. But yeah, to get back to it, and if I asked you, do you think you'll like it more in 8 more years? I would probably tell you that you will love this hobby more in 8 more years.
yeah. When I started, it was like a kid in a candy store. Because I come
Mhm.
in with Football Mogul and Action PC Football. Those are the first two games I played, and then that's when I met Ron, and he was the one that convinced me to play cards and dice. And I was like, what do you mean? What is that? And so he got me into shootout hockey, and then he got me into strat hockey, and then from there it just exploded. So when I discovered all these games, I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable, and I bought as many as I could, and I just went, balls to the wall playing all these games,
Mhm.
and some I liked and some I didn't.
Mhm.
I've since like gone through the candy store or gone through Toys R Us down the Star Wars aisle in 1979, so to speak, and I've come back to them all, and now I'm kind of replaying all these games a little bit, and so I'm going through round two of them all. And I'm finding out
Yeah.
that I really, really am enjoying them the second time around. Because again, I was playing a little bit of this, a little bit of any game I could play. If you go back to some of my early videos, I was all over the place. And
Mhm.
now I'm still all over the place, but I'm more controlled all over the place because I'm really appreciating the games now. And but yeah, at first I was amazed at how many games they were. I really
Mhm.
was. I want to
Mhm.
bring in a guest here that's been playing for quite some time, and we have Dwayne on here.
How's
Dwayne,
it
thanks
going,
for coming
guys?
on here and joining us
Oh, thank
today.
you.
And I wanted to get your
By the way,
opinion on this.
Hey,
If you guys don't know Dwayne, Dwayne's does a lot of APA baseball and things like that. So, what are your thoughts here, Dwayne? What do you think the future of this hobby is?
I think right before I came on, you was talking about the age. When I picked this hobby up when I was 12 or 13, then you have the kids, the wife, and all that, and then you get to the point the kids go away, and then you get back in it. And I think that's how it's always going to be. It's going to be an ebb and flow. They always talk about the conventions. You'll have a handful of younger people there, but eventually they're going to get to the point where they got more time on their hands to be able to do things they want instead of life itself. And I think they'll pick it back up.
Okay, so you think the younger kids will eventually come over and play some of these games? You think?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think that our generation is the heyday because we didn't grow up with instant gratification as far as we had Atari and you had a little dot going across the screen. You didn't have this great, but that's where Digital Diamond and those type of things where you can enter your game results went out of the park ever gets a board game companion, and you can see the graphic when you put in G3 and the ground ball to first, and it looks like the first baseman for the Braves is actually. I think that's when this hobby could take off as far as board games.
Okay. Um, so are you primarily an Apple player? Do you play other things?
I used to. What got me doing this was play games and doing red, white, and blue racing.
No,
Yes.
that brings up, and I've been taking notes the whole time. So I'm not ignoring you guys. I am taking notes here. Really, I'm not doing crossword puzzles or Sudoku or whatever it's called. I want to bring up play. Okay, PLAAY.com. Keith and Sam over there at Play. That's kind of an interesting wrinkle in the hobby, if you will, because their games are very different than your standard Strat app or Status Pro. They're very
There.
very different games.
Not number oriented.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's not so much about the numbers and the formulas as it is about a board game, and a lot of people enjoy that. A lot of people really like that approach to the game, and I think that's been a nice infusion into the hobby. And not that I'm an expert at this, but since I
Mhm.
joined and played all these games, and you hear about all the the older games you play, and then you got to play games, and it's like wow. I think that brought some people into the hobby just because kind of the way they
Mhm.
play. What do you think, St?
Yeah, I want to say first, it's I didn't get into them for a while because I kept hearing that same thing. It's about storyline. It's not about stats. Um, and I thought, okay, but I like stats. I like box scores. I like numbers, right? As a lot of us do. But I think it's it's a misnomer about the company. And I just want to point out real fast that uh, the play games have a very strong and a very deep statistical base behind them. There is a lot of work done behind the scenes to make sure that they are statistically accurate and they perform statistically uh, in an accurate way. So I don't want anyone out there who's sort of wavering to say, well, but I like stats because that's what I did. And now I think I have all of their games. I think I own them all on the shelf right over here. And, uh, but I do think their sort of style, they definitely have their own style. It's a narrative style, it tells you a story as you go. And I think that is really a strong effort to meet the non sports tabletop gamer somewhere in between. Where if you look at an APA card, unless you know APA, you can't tell if it's a good player or a bad player. Depending on how far back you go, you can't even tell what year the card is or what team the guy's on. If you look at a strat card and you're not a sports gamer, you may or may not be able to tell if it's a good player or a bad player. Um, and not everybody is into stats like we were because there's really no sporting news now and you're not really going straight to the box scores in the newspaper or the sports page. But I think analytics in sports have become very important. I know they've become very important in game design. And I think a lot of people would be surprised how well play does analytics behind the scenes.
Well, I can
And
tell you with
then,
red, white, and blue, it's uncanny, St.
yeah,
How the
yeah.
top 10 is the top 10.
Mhm.
Not all these, and that's a good thing. I don't want it to be. I play this race and I know who's going to be in but you might get one or two outliers both ways where the guy finished second ends up 30th because of a wreck and the guy that finished 15th or 16th in there, but it's uncanny how
Mhm.
close it comes. And
You're
I
right.
say
No,
it's
I think
simplistic, but it's not. That little star and that pit
it
stop
does
and
a
all.
lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing.
I think the actual genius of that company and of any company in our hobby is if you can make your game extremely complex. I mean incredibly complex behind the curtain. But from the people on the other side of the curtain, it looks extremely easy.
Yeah.
It's an easy game to play. It's an easy game to understand. But there's, because of that curtain that's there, we often don't understand just how complex it is, the process of creating that game. And I think that's part of the magic as well, is that that company does a phenomenal job of taking this very complex structure behind the scenes and making it very easy for anyone that opens the box.
Now, here's a question for you here. And in the chat room, a couple of people brought this up. So Joe brings this up. And I believe Joe's coming to um, Digital to DiceCon in a couple weeks. Looking forward to meeting him. He says, my father introduced me to tabletop sports games with Catico All-Star Baseball when I was a kid. And that is going to bring me to this question here. Do you think us being older people in the hobby, growing up with the tabletop games, that it's an easier transition for us, whereas kids today that come out of the womb with an iPhone in their hand have never really had that tabletop gaming experience. Do you think in the future that's going to be a positive or a negative? Dwayne, what do you think?
I think it's a barrier. And like I say, that's why I think the digital diamond and all integrating the computer in with the board game, I think that's what's going to catch them.
Okay, ST, what do you think? Do you think having a pass with board games is made it easier for us to accept these board games? And do you think kids growing up with technology are not going to
Absolutely.
embrace it?
Absolutely. But, and again, I think that the tabletop industry right now is volume wise at an all-time high. So I think, yes, the kids spend way too much time staring at their phone, but I think they're also playing a lot of games. I mean, every time you walk into a game store, it is full of kids from 13 to 25. Um, so I think there's a lot of that going on the weekends as well. And I think we're underestimating how much time they actually spend now playing board games. It's not Monopoly and it's not Life anymore, and it's not Risk, but they are playing a lot of card games and a lot of board games. Um, gosh, I read a story recently of the Marvel card game and how many copies it has sold. And I can tell you that anyone in our hobby would be very jealous.
Oh my gosh! Oh, speaking of that, okay, so last Sunday I went up to New Hampshire with a friend of mine, and we go to these old retro video game stores, and and I'll find a stray Sega Genesis game or a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox game, and they're $5, you know what I mean? And Jordan versus Bird or something like that, or I love all those old games, and you can get them for cheap money, and it's just fun to play, and I'm going to be playing some here in the channel this summer. But anyway, what I'm getting at is this small store was packed. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people here looking for old video games today. Well, not necessarily. Half of them were in the video game section, and half of them were buying packs of cards. And
Absolutely.
I went over there, and what is this? And these kids are buying these packs of cards and ripping them open like baseball cards. And they were, like you're saying, it was Marvel, it was Dungeons and Dragons, it was Magic the Gathering, and they had to.
Absolutely.
And this wasn't there in the last. We've gone up there. The last 10 years we've been going up there, and I don't remember them having a section like that. And just in the last 6 months to a year, there's a whole section dedicated to all these foil wrap cards, and all these younger kids in there. None of them are going to the video games; they're all going for the cards.
Hmm.
And so,
Absolutely. No, they are doing extremely well. I mean, Pokemon alone is a worldwide billion-dollar industry, and it is in essence a card game. And so I think a lot of kids are playing a lot of games. But yes, the change is it's no longer Monopoly, Life, and Risk. But they are playing a lot of games and they are super excited about those hobbies.
another question just thought I had in mind. So, if either of you guys tried the Strat Max?
I have
No.
not.
Okay, so that's the one that's on the internet. Okay, it's basically a web-based game where you play
Mhm.
Stratomatic baseball, and it's a subscription service. And they've really gone through a lot of changes with that. But it first started with just kind of its own game, and you just hit the button and watch what happens. Like, okay, whatever. But now they since changed it where you see the dice rolls and the cards come up. So you see the Stratomatic cards come up on the screen, and you actually play Stratomatic on this baseball max. And I guess it comes with every season and the whole bit that Strat has, and it keeps standings and the whole bit. It's really cool. It's really cool
Mhm.
if you like that stuff. I'm not a big mobile gaming guy or for that, but it's there. I was kind of thinking if they so if you got the subscription Strat Max and you're playing baseball on the table, if you could enter the results like you could with Digital Diamond or Replay or even a Strat
Mhm.
PC game or iScore or Ball Score or whatever those things are, that might be kind of neat too, because that way that you could have the cards in front of you and you could roll the dice and get your input and just go and put it in on your iPad, and that's something you could do at the airport. You know what I mean? If you had your iPad out and you could just put in, and you could play a game at the airport or play a game at the convention and keep the stats right on here, and you wouldn't need to be, you know, I think that would be. I think some kind of way, and I think Strat's kind of doing it the right way. They're they have the PC game, they have the
Mhm.
Stratomatic 365. I don't know what it is, but then they also have the Strat Max. So they have multi ways to play. They got the cards, they got the PC game, they got the 365, and they have the Strat Max. And maybe they have more, I don't know. But and just since I've started the hobby, Stratomatic has just gone through the roof with things that you can do with their game.
Mhm.
And before it was just the cards and dice in this PC game. Now, granted, the PC game, it looks like it was built in the late '80s, and it's kind of weird, but it works. It does work. However, it's set up. It does work. I'd like to see an update for all their PC games, but it works, and you're playing cards and dice more or less. But since then, again, they've added all these other ways of doing things into how they do it. And Ron's always said, he goes, you got to incorporate some kind of technology into these games. Not 100%, because again, the people that get sick of looking at the computer all day want to play cards and dice. But I think if you want to bring in the younger people, I think Strat's kind of doing it the right way. What do you think, ST?
Yeah, I like the options. Options to me are always a positive. If I could wish one more thing for Strat, I wish Strat would come into the modern era on the issue of PDFs, uh, especially of years that they no longer offer, especially in basketball cards, but also hockey, I guess. Right? I mean,
Mm.
they have the files and they have the means by which to turn them into PDFs. Uh, and so I think Strat Max is a wonderful concept. It is going to bring in a lot of new Strat customers. I hope they are 30-year Strat customers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know the lifespan of an app. I don't know the lifespan of an app game. I don't know that the concept has really been around long enough for us to know if that keeps a person engaged in a game for 30 years. Um, it's going to be interesting to see, though. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And I hope that Strat does extremely well with it. Uh, I love Strat baseball cards and dice. Besides my uncle's own game, which is how I got into the hobby when I was 8 years old, just a random dice baseball game that he said, "Here, let me show you this. You like baseball cards." Um, and then I found Strat in 1984, the 83 cards at a KB toy store, and did not know for years that they released every year
Mm.
after that. So I held on to the 83 cards and just used the 83 cards forever. So I have a history with Strat and I love it. But I have become, and I know Ron has as well, Strat basketball is pretty fantastic. And it is one of the most underrated games, I think, in the hobby. Cards and Dice Advanced it's called Advanced, but do not let that be a barrier in any way. It is not hard to learn. You don't have to be a basketball expert to play strap basketball advanced. Um, except, I think the catalog only goes back, what would it be now? About 8 years. And the problem is you can't really play Magic and, and Michael and Bird and
Mm,
Chamberlain and,
right.
you know, and Russell. So I would like to see a widening of their cards and dice back catalog in some way. PDF seems to be a low cost way to do things now. Um, I think that's one of the changes we have also seen is you can almost tell by the age of the company owner if they're going to offer PDFs or not.
Right.
And there
Right.
is sort of that line
Yeah.
where everyone under that age offers PDFs, everyone
Yeah.
over that age says no way, they're all going to get stolen.
Right.
And I just go back to the analogy of I would rather put $1,000 a product out there and have 100 of it pirated and make 900 than have $0 of it out there
Right.
and make
Right.
zero.
Yeah. But
Um,
One
so,
thing with PDF, Steve, I don't understand why any company doesn't do this, and that's the cost. I get the cost of production. Like Appa, it's about 10 cents a card,
mhm.
and they won't do PDFs, and then people bitch that it costs all that money, $90, but you're getting 900 cards. So why? And I love Play.com. Why? And they already use PDFs. Why they don't add the extra players as a PDF to keep his cost down for the print version, and then you have to at least buy some print cards in order to play the game, and then the PDFs as the extras, and that way his games don't have to cost $70, $80 like Appa, and you still get all the players. I don't know why more
I think
companies
there
don't
are ways.
do that.
I mean, I think there are ways of doing it, that are smart, that are responsible, um, and that would help the hobby for every company. But I also understand the fear of piracy. It's a real fear. However, as you both know, 99 out of 100 people that you meet in this hobby seem extremely nice and extremely conscientious.
Correct.
And
And
I
I
just
think they're
don't
I'll
think
older
give
it's a
you an
too.
pirating
example, Steve.
hobby.
There's a gentleman, Donald Weed, who has done every NASCAR set that Keith
Yes.
has not produced. That being said, if Keith goes back and does a vintage season, I buy it. Two reasons.
Yeah,
I want
I
to
do too.
support him, and I want to see the difference between his cards and Weed's cards, just to
Hmm.
compare them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I would still buy even if I made it myself and was confident that the cards were made accurately. I would still buy his
Hmm.
to just support the company.
company, right.
Absolutely.
I think
Yep.
that's the
Absolutely.
the overwhelming attitude of the community is that I get is that, yeah, is there some theft with PDF? Yeah, and maybe it's more than I think, and maybe it's more than we all think. Excuse me, but for the most part, you talk to people, and they want to support, the developer. They want to support Appa, Strat,
Absolutely.
Play. They want to support you with the magazine, and Clay with his games, and Dave Cook with his games, and a whole bit. And I know I do. Black Friday comes, and I try to give my support to as many people as I can. And
Oh, I love
when
Black Friday.
when we were in Ohio, um, we had one of the attendees come up, and he handed me Cold Snap. And he goes, Dave, this is for
Mhm.
you. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I love the show and this and that. And he goes, I buy all the games from Play to support them, and I don't necessarily play them all. And he goes, but I want to give you this so you can play it on the channel and the whole bit. And that's the kind of support that people get. And don't get me wrong, I've bought in things that I've never played yet because I just wanted to support the people. As far as the PDF goes, so getting back to the PDF, I like your attitude. It's like, if I could put $1,000 of product out and make 900 and 100 gets stolen, well, I made $900. I not zero. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Again, well, if that 1,000 turns into 500, then it's like, yeah, okay, that's kind of weird. But I guess I mean,
Absolutely,
it
absolutely.
would probably. I don't know how you'd even figure out how much PDF product is stolen. That's the thing. I don't know how you'd figure that out.
Yeah,
Here's
there's
my
no way.
here's my cutting the baby in half, and I'll ask both you guys this question in the chat room. Okay, so let's just take Stratton Apple as our examples. Okay, and I guess you could throw play in there. Well, you could throw anybody in there, payoff pitch, whatever.
Mhm.
So if they're concerned about PDF theft, right, and the whole bit, what about this? What if when you release a new season, whether it's a current season like last year, or it's, hey, we're going to go back and we're going to make 1975. We don't have 75 in our catalog. We're going to make 1975, just as an example. What if they said, okay, for the first 6 months, it's going to be print only, and then in 6 months you can buy the PDF. So if you want to get on top and buy the Cadillac in print form, you get it, and you figure that'll get in enough hands that by the time the PDF comes out, that maybe the theft to be less. I mean, do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
I think that would be fine. I would be all for that. I I think most companies would make more off the PDF. I can
Yeah,
tell
with
you.
overseas,
Oh
with the
yeah.
cost of shipping, and yes.
I think their profit margin is actually larger on a PDF than it actually is on a board game. Only because the cost is much less. The cost is so much higher to buy components
Mm,
and have boxes made and to have to ship and buy packing material and then to pay for the packaging and the profit margin is always going to be higher on PDF. And if it's not higher on PDF, you're probably doing something wrong because it should be.
yeah.
Um, so to me, it's no lose. And I don't understand. I mean, other than just age and attitude about new things, I I don't understand the anti PDF. Now, I know some guys who are like, I wouldn't buy PDFs. I don't want to print my own stuff out. I just want to buy. Totally understand that. Totally understand that. And if I have the choice between the two, I'm probably buying the cards as long as they're reasonable or most of the time. Most of the time. What I where I think PDFs would help a lot is again with something like Strat Basketball, where there is no back catalog in cards and dice. So rather than having no back catalog, why not have a PDF back catalog? And other than space on your site, the overhead after you have the PDFs up there, the overhead is almost zero.
Mm,
It's free income in a lot of ways. As I mean, yeah, you'll still have to answer technology questions and my PDF won't download and all this kind of stuff.
yeah.
Sure. And that's going to take some time. Sure. But I think what you would sell would be worth it 100 times over than the time that you would have to spend with, oh, I accidentally ordered the wrong PDF, which happens
Yeah.
more times than you probably know. Believe me. um, I, I get those emails about once a month. Oh, I ordered the wrong one. Uh, so, but I mean, it's minor compared to the amount that you sell in PDF. So I guess it's just a generational issue and it's probably going to remain so. And part of the younger game designer who is very much pro PDF, like Clay Dreslough and Joe Bryan, uh, I think that's part of the reason for their rise. I really do.
Okay. Now Gary put something in here that's interesting. He says PDFs are great, but cutting cards is cathartic, and printing in a shop is a lot more money as well. I've done both. I've downloaded PDFs and I printed and cut it here, and I've brought it to a print shop and had it done. And I've had obviously I bought it right from the company, so I've done kind of all three ways of doing it. And quite honestly, for me, I mean, I used to love the PDFs when I first broke into the hobby because it was fun for me, and I could print them out and cut them out and round the corners if I wanted to. And I made some really nice card sets, is what I did. Now, though, I really prefer, for the most part, there are a couple of companies that I would rather print myself, but for the most part, I do like getting those cards in right from the company.
Oh yeah.
You don't got to cut them, you don't got to print them, you don't got to sort them, you don't worry about running out of ink or running out of paper or burning out your printer. They come in and they're done. And so
Mhm.
for me, when I can, now again, if I'm out of the country and I gotta pay ridiculous amounts of money to ship it to me, that's different. That now you look at
Mhm.
the PDFs, but for someone that doesn't have to worry about that, I've gotten away from the PDFs unless it's a game that you have to. Although I will say this, if it's a team chart, okay, like your game ST, where you got teams
Mhm.
rather than individual cards, the PDF for that tends to work for me. But individual cards, boy, when you're
Yeah.
printing hundreds of cards in a whole bit. Dwayne, have you ever done the PDF route?
Only when I have to, Dave. I much rather pay for the print. Much rather.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, to be competitive, most of your games aren't going to be more than 10 cents a card. And when you
Mhm.
divide it up and think of it that way, most prints aren't that expensive. It depends on how many cards you're getting from that company. I mean,
Mhm.
you get what you pay for. If you want every player on every team, you got to put the money out. You can't expect them to sell you a season back in 1930 when there was 20 players on the team and that was it, compared to nowadays when there's 50 or
Oh,
60 sometimes.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
and again, I would rather buy the cards as well.
Yep.
My strongest argument for PDF is when a product does not exist. I would rather it be in PDF and have a PDF option rather than having no option.
Correct. And like I say, I think the other big thing is overseas.
Oh yeah,
When it's costing these guys $60 or $70 for
yeah,
Oh
customs and all,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
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 they can't
Yeah.
afford one or
yeah.
two games a year or something. I
It
mean,
doesn't make
and
any
you can
sense.
do that and give them the game for X amount of money and spread the hobby. And oh yeah, it's because supposedly that's what Apple was talking about doing, and I don't think they've implemented it. Was PDF for foreign customers only.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I can understand that. Yeah, I know that Paul Fay uh, was at Colorado last year. Hi, Paul, if you're out there. Um, and I think he made a haul in Colorado when he was there because he's flying back to. Oh, I know he's going to be upset because I don't remember where he's from. Is it like Malta or somewhere?
sounds
He's
right.
from, huh?
That sounds right. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
somewhere like that. And I know that he took back a haul. Uh, and I understood it. I mean, I can't imagine how much it is. Even Canada now, it's expensive to ship to Canada. So I mean, I do understand it. I really do. And PDFs for everyone outside the US would be a godsend. Absolutely.
Okay. Let me talk about another thing here. Cost. Okay, like Dwayne said, if you want to buy app, it's about a dime a card, so it's not that bad. But when you buy 900 cards, it's $90. You want to get into
Mm,
football, which I love the football. I still think it's one of my favorite games and favorite football games.
mm,
But if you got to get a season in the 70s, it's $122. I think it is now because you're getting. I think it's actually less intensive. I think you're getting 13 or 1400 cards for that, so it's a little bit less
mm,
with that. But that's a pretty big apple to take a bite out of if you're getting into the hobby. Strat, they're a little bit cheaper. I still think the best value is the payoff pitch with Joe. I mean, those are like they're $44 and you get everyone, and those cards are gorgeous. I don't know how he does it. I don't know if he has if he's getting them printed on Mars or something like that. But good for him that he's got a really good product, and it comes with everybody, and it's a very fun game. But how do you get people into that when you say, hey, okay, the game's only $40, but yeah, if you want to buy
See,
your
I'm not
favorite
selling it
season,
that way, Dave. I'm selling hours. If I'm the guy advertising. You can sit there and play this game for 300 hours, and you divide that by the nine, you're down to a buck or two an hour. Where can
Hmm.
you go get a buck an hour entertainment? I play APA and spend
Yeah.
$100 on the season, and I'll play it for three, four, 500 hours or whatever. I'm down to pennies on the hour.
Yeah.
It's a great investment.
Yeah.
That's how you sell it. You
That's
don't
how
sell.
I've always talked about
Yeah,
it on the show. I've always said, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna spend $120 or so on this season, but every game it's 2.5 to 3 hours, and if I play 3 games, I'm 9 hours into this. So I mean,
right.
I'm at at that point there. Do the math. It's a little more than a buck an hour, but yeah, I agree. There was a video game I played one time, and it was called Horizon Zero Dawn. It was kind of a futuristic game where it was like uh, robot dinosaurs had taken over the Earth. Go figure. And the people were now cavemen trying to fight these dinosaurs. Anyway, that's the name. That's how the game went. And it was a big game at the time, $60 game, and I didn't get it because I didn't think it was going to be any good. And then it went on sale like 2 years later for $25. I probably put 100 hours or so into that game. I felt like I needed to send them more money because I bought it for $25, and I was like, I have over 100 hours into your game. I feel like I've robbed you. I need to send you some more money. And but
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
the point that I get into. That game I talked about, the video game Skyrim, probably my favorite video game ever. I gotta have 300 to 400 hours into that game. Now I've bought it 3 or 4 different times with different consoles, but even at $50 a whack, $200 I've spent on that game. Gee, I'm down to about 50 cents an hour playing that game. Again, is it worth it? Is it worth 50 cents an hour?
Mm. I will say about this sports game hobby, there are infinite possibilities of what you can do with any of these games. Infinite possibilities. Um, Keith Avalone on Thursday night was talking about a game that he found at a thrift store. And it's a card game, and you can only play the game one time
Oh yeah, the
because
exit games.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
part of it is that you have to cut up the cards, right? So you could only play the game one time. And I'm thinking, man, with any play game, I there's an infinite amount of things that you can do, from playing a full year to playing all-star leagues to playing draft leagues to playing cross era games, which I do almost exclusively in every game.
Tournament.
To Yeah, I mean, there is no end to what you can do with these sports games. So you're exactly right. The amount of entertainment that you're going to get is infinite. Totally agree.
Yeah,
Right. You spend $200 and you played that game one time. Correct.
yeah,
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, Dwayne, let me ask you this. Um, I see you do a lot of Apple on the channel there, and you got your products going. Did you have a bunch of Apple seasons?
Not many,
Okay,
because from the age of 20 something till 40 something, I didn't buy anything, Dave, with the kids and all. Um, Yeah, we played. Me and a few guys at work got together and set up a few seasons, and you know how that goes when you got multiple people. It always starts out great and dies off. But yeah, so we bought some seasons back then. But yeah, I wasn't spending a lot of money on stuff, knowing that you couldn't really have the time to play it.
okay. But you have some seasons, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And do you feel that you get your money out of those seasons?
Yeah, and that's part of my problem, Dave, is starting three or four projects. When you buy three or four things at one time, they're sitting there, and I think I got to get them out in order to get my money's worth. Not thinking that, well, you get this project done, you can do the other one. So I got three or four of them going at one time, just so I can say I'm playing those seasons.
Yeah, what I do, and you probably heard me say it on the show and here on the channel, is I'll come down and I do what's called the Dave's Classic Rewind, where I go
Yeah.
back in time and I find a game and a sport and a season, and I put it on the table, and for me, so now I can look at my payoff pitch pile and my apple pile, whatever else pile I got, and I can say, yep, I've played that season a handful of times. I've got
Yes.
5, 6, 7, 10 hours into that. I feel like if I haven't got my money's worth, at least I've invested some time into that. So
Yep.
that's been my theme for 2025 is to get different seasons and different games on the table so I can say I played it. not just to say I play, but you know what I mean. It's like you
Yep.
know, I hate to sit there and just play one season all year long and not touch anything else and be like, well, why did I buy all that stuff? So I'm trying to justify some purchases by playing these games this year, and I've really enjoyed that. You know, like going over here and saying, okay, I'm going to play this APA season, then I'm going to play this payoff pitch season, then I'm going to pull out, you know, whatever else, you know, game I played a season ticket baseball. I pulled that out, printed a couple of teams out, and I got a little tournament going with that. And it's so for me, I'm trying to get my money back by playing these games. Is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see what else I
Agreed.
have on my list here. Now, St, you were talking about you know, how many new games have been made, and I talked about that too. I mean, someone in the chat was talking about how there's now over 40 hockey games and there's up near 100 baseball games. Um, I, and you were talking about the technology, you know. So you know, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you know, some of these baseball games they didn't have the internet and technology like we do now. So that obviously makes it much more. I don't want to say easier, but I guess maybe easier to make these games.
Yo, yeah. I mean, yeah, easier may not be the word because it is not easy to make a game.
But compared to what you would have to do to get
Yes,
data to make the games,
it
like to
is
grab all the
easy.
sporting
It is.
newses and
It is.
thumb through them.
Yeah, it is a lot easier to get the data now. It is a lot easier to get a wider range of data and opinion. To create these games is extremely hard, and then to maintain them afterward with seasons and sets is even harder. And but yeah, to get the data now or to scrape data sites if you know how to code um, is so much easier than it ever was before, that almost anyone can make a gap game. I call them gap games. Even a child now, even a kid who's a pretty good math kid can make a gap game, which is in essence a guy hit 300. So, okay, 30 times out of 100 options, he's going to get a hit. Well, how often were those hits? Singles, doubles, triples, home runs. And then you just have a gap there for each of those. Um, Almost anyone can make those games now. So the challenge is now kind of going beyond that and beyond those gap games, where those games would have been fantastic 40 years ago and top of the line. Uh, the challenge with all the stats that are available now is what can you do with the math to make it even more fun, to make it even more interesting, to make it even more challenging, to do something that hasn't been done 100 times before.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of game designers start working on a game because they sort of liked a couple things about every game, but there was just one or two huge things that they couldn't understand why they're not part of a game.
Mm.
And they kind of wanted to sort of fill that niche, fill that hole. And a lot of them do. And I I would say a vast majority of the games that I play most are games that have come out within the last 10 or 15 years, which really, I think, for me at least, speaks highly for uh, the companies and the guys who are creating games right now. They're doing a wonderful job at finding ways to use the math because it is so available.
Mm-hmm. David asked, "St, tell Dave how many hours of videos you watch to make your game."
Oh man, the squared circle. So before I release a territory in the squared circle, I watch everything. And by everything, I mean everything that is available that I had on VHS for all of my years, online trading tapes across the world. I watch everything and I chart it all, every single move. So I'm going to guess when it comes to doing a territory that doesn't have a lot out there to watch, I'm always like a little excited. Uh, but I'm about to hit the raw era and the nitro era, and holy cow, there's a lot of footage. Um, Thousands of hours. Holy cow! It's going to be monumental. But yeah, I definitely try to be exhaustive. Absolutely.
Nice.
Probably a little OCD about it, too much, but I do try to be exhaustive with all my games actually, because I just want them to be right. And if they didn't feel 100% right, I would have a big problem with it first.
Okay. Dwayne, I'm not sure where you come in on the chat here. What are your thoughts about the future of the hobby? Where do you see this in, say, 5, 6, 7 years?
Oh, I believe it's still going to grow. Yeah, it's a, every year there's something new and exciting coming out. I mean, just like ST said, somebody sees this game and says, if I add this, oh my gosh, how much better would that game be? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, yep, it's awesome.
Okay. So again, the thing that was concerning is that we're all older people playing this game, and in 5 or 10 years, we're all going to be older, and at some point, it's like that coin push game. You go off the cliff, and you're either not around anymore, or you're not playing it anymore. And is there any more coins coming in behind us? So, do you see it, the cards and dice staying strong and going like that, or do you think it's going to be more on the mobile or the computer?
Yeah, I like to say, I believe that my nephew, he's just turned 30. In a few years, he's going to be, let's replay that 24 season. Let's replay that. This going to be, I'm tired. He's going to be sitting here, the old man in the chair, griping about how football isn't football like it was in 2024, just like we do about 1980s.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's like, "Well,
Absolutely.
I want to play with some real football players. Yeah, I want to play real baseball when they started with this ghost runner and all this stupid shit, and now they got all kinds of other dumb stuff that Manfred figured out, and he's going to be cussing it. Yeah,
I I think when Patrick Mahomes retires, when Steph Curry retires, you're going to see a lot of nostalgia 10 years after that. A lot.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's what Ron was talking about. He's like, people are going to be looking to play some of these guys here in a few years,
Absolutely.
and
He's right.
where you're going to do it. Um, Another question for you guys here. There's been some chat in the chat room here as we're live here tonight on Saturday, May 3rd. This is Digital Today's podcast, episode 260. We are live here on YouTube tonight talking about the future of the hobby here. Right now, I have ST Patrick on, also with Dwayne Martz, and we have a ton of people in the chat room right now chiming in, and it's a lot of good things being said tonight. Um, that being said, I completely lost my thought. No, I'm kidding. You see a lot of baseball games being made. I think you talked about baseball is the most popular one. Probably
Yeah.
as far as an engine goes, is probably the simplest because it's the batter pitcher interaction compared to other games like football, hockey, basketball, where there's a lot of moving parts. What do you think the future of the hobby is as it pertains to new sports being made? So not your top 4 or 5 or 6 sports. What do you think going forward the reaction would be to someone who tried to make cricket, horse racing, things like that, lacrosse? Do you think that's more niche, or do you think that's something that would go over well?
Oh, I think it would go over extremely well. James Cast and I have been talking about and horsing around with a gymnastics game for well over a year. And I have a game that will give you accurate scores. My problem with it is I don't know if it's fun, right? And if it's not fun, it's not a game. It's just a score generator. And I want it to be fun, but the problem with these smaller sports games, like a gymnastics, is that I can't compare it to anything to say, is it fun?
Yeah,
Like there's no bar that's been set as to what exactly is a fun gymnastics game.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So is the game that we have all it can be, and that's we're maxing it out, and that's as fun as it can get, or is it not fun at all?
Yeah.
And uh, I don't think either of us are happy enough with it yet to even put it down on paper in any codified way. I know there have been a lot of great horse racing games out there, and still are. There are still a lot of really good boxing games out there that um, are popular. I am stunned and surprised that there hasn't been a plethora of UFC games with as popular as it's been for 30 years.
That's a good point.
Um,
That's a good point.
I'm actually surprised there aren't more soccer games, to be honest with you. But like you said earlier, we've heard for years about how popular soccer is going to be, and it just hasn't passed that line yet.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel that way now with what used to be called girls basketball. I think a lot of companies, some that I know of personally, who I won't name, put out uh, WNBA years and WNBA sets and college girl sets, um, and they just haven't done as well
Mm.
as the public story might tell you that it's going to do so well and
Yeah.
it's so popular now. But the buying public is just not buying yet in the sports game hobby. And so I wonder if there just always going to be a certain point where horse racing is, where boxing is, where speaking of the
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
uh
Dwayne, can I bump you out here for a bit so I can bring
Sure.
in another guest?
Gotcha,
All right.
man.
So I do want to thank you coming on, Dwayne.
No,
And
not a problem.
again, check out Dwayne's channel. He's got some great things on his channel. But again, I wanted your opinion. I saw you once, so I wanted to get your opinion on that. So, so thank you for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome, bud.
All right, and we'll be in touch. Okay. Alrighty. So let me uh, jump out, Dwayne, and we're gonna add in another creator here, and Mr. Clay Dreslough is joining us here. Clay, thanks for coming on.
Hey, folks.
hey Clay.
I wanted to join earlier, but I actually have to run out in a few minutes. Anyway, I won't tell you the story of my life completely, but my office is having a new roof put on and it's incredibly noisy. So I moved into the spare bedroom. I'm on my phone here, and I've got the season ticket baseball inventory behind me, if anyone was
Oh, nice.
Nice.
curious what our inventory management system looks like. It's called a stack of cards, and then I write the season in front of it. But yeah, that's how I'm going.
Nice. So we want to get your opinion on here too. What do you think the future of the hobby is? As someone who's created games and still
Yeah.
continues to create games, you've had the mogul games for quite a bit on the computer there, but now you've got the season ticket baseball, season ticket football. What are some of the feels that you get?
Yeah. Um, it's funny. I hang out with. I have friends who play non-sports games, and that's sort of all I can really find in this corner of California. But it definitely lets me sort of understand the people that buy like 200 games and build storage for it and everything else. And so the non-sports board game world is just thriving. I think the footnote to that is that the tariff situation right now is probably going to hurt them a lot, but we that's a different discussion. Um, and I think, and a lot of those people are in their 30s and 40s, and some of them I'm sort of able to get them interested in the sports games. We just don't have. I mean, I think if some of our games were like front and center in a friendly local gaming store, that people would try them. I mean, a lot of us, stumbled into a game store. People like ST stumbled into KB Hobby or whatever, and saw a game and tried it. So many people don't even know these games exist. Like I was playing season ticket with a friend at a bar, and a friend of ours came in and she was like explaining it to everyone else in the bar. She's like, "Okay, my friend Clay is taking this game, and it's like Dungeons and Dragons for baseball, right? Like sort of the idea is so foreign to them that they didn't grow up with these games. So I think there are a lot of people that will join the hobby if they find out about it. That's a hard process. None of us have marketing dollars, or I'm not gonna. It's tough. Like, do I want to spend a ton of money to go to Gen Con and have a booth? And I know that Dave obviously stumbled into one of my games at PAX East. So I think those things are good outreaches, and we might want to do them more. And to other people who make sports games, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you go to a convention that you think is sort of all fantasy and computer games. That a lot of people come by and be like, "Wait, you have a hockey game? Like, I love hockey. Like, tell me about this."
Yeah.
So I think we should probably do some more of that. I think we might be pleasantly surprised by the people that are.
At that PAX East there, because I was covering video games at the time for the video game podcast, and there was a whole tabletop section. And usually that was, again, the Gen Cons and things like that. The PAX East was really for video games, but they had this huge board game section, and I never went there because it wasn't anything I was interested in for many years. And when I went and I stumbled on your section there, you were playing a card football game, I think, on the tabletop, and I don't remember what one it was, or if it's something you were working on or what it is. But I kind of looked the other way, and somebody at the table grabbed me, and it was you or somebody else. Said, "Well, we have a computer football game,"
Yeah,
and I think you went to the Facebook page and you could download last season's game for free. So I got the baseball and the football, and I don't know what year that was that I actually did that. It was either 2010 or 2012. It was one of those years. But so that's when I gave up the video games in 2016, 2017. I was looking for something, and I played your football mogul game, and the first thing I did was play the 76 Raiders and the 76 Patriots. I can't do that anywhere else. I can't do that on Xbox or PlayStation. I can't, and the
right.
Sega Genesis goes back to what, 91, which is great if you want to play that, but I wanted to play, Stabler. I wanted to play Grogan. And I was able to do that with your game. And I really wonder now, as you joined us here, if I didn't go by that table and stop, if I even would have get into this hobby. Because that was the gateway into sports sims, was your game. It
Yeah,
really was. And then after that, I'm like, what else is there? This is great. What else is there? And then I saw Ron playing Action PC. And then I get into that. What else is there? And I went down the rabbit hole. Then I took the turn for the cards and dice. And so that's what started it all. And I kind of still wonder to this day if I didn't run into your booth, like if I'd still be playing the video games, or if I would have found any of this. I really wonder. But like you said, how do you get people to stumble onto your booth? Or
right.
stumble on your game, or how do you get that? And I know our community, the word spreads in the whole bit, but how do you get the people coming from behind us? What do you keep? What's the key to
Yeah.
that?
Well, I have the slight advantage in that I have a list of 30,000 people who have either bought or been interested in one of the mobile games over the years. And so I will send them an email. And I probably should send them more emails than I do, but I'm worried they're going to get mad if they're like, "Hey, I signed up for a computer game and you're telling me about this dumb card game." But I occasionally will say, "Hey, there's a season ticket game and you should try it. And here's a coupon." So that's one way to reach out to them. That's that is not where most of my customers have come from. There's a few people who will buy baseball mogul, or they'll buy the game on USB because that's how I'm shipping it now to people who
Really?
who can't deal with the downloads. um, and ST was talking about like people who have problems downloading PDFs and so on. And the technical side with a Windows game is even harder, right? You get people who are like, "Oh, I have a Mac and I didn't." It's like, I told you in big bold print it's a Windows game, right? So
Mm.
they get a refund and whatever. But there's also there's a lot of back and forth. Small company. It's nice to sort of talk to the people individually and help them if I can. But then I'll say, "Hey, just anyway, I'll let them know about season ticket baseball, about the football game, season ticket football." Um, and I definitely have some people crossing over for that, which is pretty cool. Um, but yeah, that's sort of just the beginning, and that's not a ton of people. Mostly it's people who played the game a long time ago and aren't even buying the new version, so not that big a list. It's interesting. The YouTube community is amazing. Um, I don't know if somebody who doesn't play our games is going to stumble into you,
Yeah.
or whatever, or ID Jester, or anybody else. Uh, yeah, Steve, etc. Anyway, excuse the names I have omitted. I'm a little rattled right now. But yeah, there's a ton of people online, and I hope that community grows, and it definitely adds a lot.
Going forward, mostly speaking to the cards and dice, I guess. What do you think the future of the hobby is? As someone who's made games, and I don't think your games were around when we started the podcast, so you're kind of new with at least the card game part of this.
Yeah.
Going forward, so you come over from the computer to the card game, and there was a reason for that. Going forward, I mean, what do you think's going to happen?
Um, I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic for myself in the sense that it takes a lot of work to do something like create the seasons for season ticket, to create the game, right? That was like 5 years of beta testing, ton of feedback. And now that that's there, as SD points out, it's sort of free revenue, right? It sits there and people buy the PDFs. Um, and so I can maybe make money from that, and then work on, like, I'm working on the Deadball seasons right now. I'm not sure if people want to hear that I've got like 8 different other game ideas that are half finished. But I would love to publish those, and I'd love to let people try them and grow. He's probably laughing now. He's like, "Yeah, I got 8 different games."
Hey, I feel that, man.
Yep.
I feel that.
So I would love to come out with more games every couple of years. Come out with improvements to season ticket. People want Negro leagues. I've talked with Brian Aronov about getting Japanese stats in and so on. So there's so much room for growth in terms of the production side. And I think people will buy them. I think the community is getting bigger instead of smaller. I think that's sort of a fact. I think the frustrating thing for some of the producers is that it's not getting bigger as quickly as it could, right? If you have people like me coming in and, I mean, I don't feel like I'm competing with guys like Joe Bryan or Keith or whoever. It's an incredibly friendly community, and we're all helping each other out. And basically, anyone you meet in the hobby will
Yeah.
sort of we'll own all of our games, right?
Well, that's
Yeah,
what you make a good point here, Clay. Because a lot of people they're like, well, how do you and the James Cast get along? You both podcast. I says, I love the James Cast,
yeah,
and I says, people don't have to pick. They don't have
yeah,
to pick Digital Dice or and a lot of people say, I listen to them both. And if another podcast started, they listen to 3 podcasts. So as far as you said about you're not competing with them, probably not because I play payoff pitch, I play season ticket, I play strat, I play APA. I mean, just about any baseball game you can name, I've played it on the channel, and I just rotate them. And
yeah.
some days I'm in the mood for season ticket. Some days I'm in the mood for payoff pitch. Some days I'm in the mood for APA, and that's the thing. And like I say, people play them all for the most part. So it's not like, oh man, I'm going up against this guy. It's like, no, because I know everybody listens to Digital to Dice listens to James Cast. And so it's a win-win because the community wants more is
Yeah.
what it is, and that's kind of how I feel about it.
I think I have seen people come over from Strat. I've got a ton of reviews of people like, I played Strat for 40 years, and I like your game better for whatever reasons. Obviously, many of the same reasons that I designed the game, because there were things about existing games that I didn't like. Um, but I think the fact that Strat is sort of so popular and had a resurgence during COVID, and that they're doing Strat Max, I think that does help people like me who are trying to make a living at this. That people, yeah, they might Google Strat, they might find you playing Strat on YouTube, and then your next video will be you playing season ticket, and they'll be like, oh, I'm so it's good that there's sort of crossover there.
Yeah,
I think without Strat, I mean, I don't get emails from people saying no. No, I have people who are Strat and APA fans, but I think Strat is a bigger dog in the industry, and there are just a lot of people that think of Strat when they think of these types of games in the same way that sort of you think about RPGs and you think Dungeons and Dragons, like,
right.
but there
Yeah,
are other RPG,
yeah,
and I know people that are making other RPGs and are making it's because of games that like D&D that bring them into it. And I think Strat, hopefully, yeah, it's nice that you were talking about, I hope Strat Max succeeds. Like, in a way, Baseball Mogul competes with Strat. In a way, season ticket baseball competes with Strat. But if Strat Max has 1 million customers, that's great for our hobby, great for me because they'll start saying, "Oh, there's things I'd like to try differently," or whatever. Or they'll say, "Boy, can I get these on PDF?" And a Strat will say no, and then
Yeah.
find out that like payoff pitch and season ticket, do have
So we had just had that talk. We had Dwayne on here for a bit, and we've been talking to you about that. So, what are your thoughts on the PDF versus the print version of games? You offer both, um, and you got some people that swear by one or the other. Then we talked about the PDF theft going on. How much money you lose with that versus not offering PDF. So, as someone who offers both, do you think it's worth offering the PDF, or do you think it's, man, I lose so much money on the PDF, it ain't worth it? What do you
oh,
think?
the PDF is essential. I mean,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
it's I don't know, 80% of my profit and 50% of my revenue, something like that. Maybe more than. Anyway, I haven't seen the numbers. But yeah, the only reason I'm able to do this and not have a day job is because of the PDFs. Um,
Okay.
they and if you want to go back to Baseball Mogul, one of the lessons I weirdly learned in 2011, I got this email from this Korean company that was like, "We would like to talk to you about a business proposition." And when you make a computer game for a living, you tend to get a lot of overseas emails like that.
Really?
Well, it's people in Eastern Europe, it's people in China saying like, "You make a baseball game, and therefore you're on our spam list. Like we have 10 3D artists, and we would like you to pay us to help you make your game." And it's nice that those companies exist, but I of course always say to them like, it's a low tech text based game. I don't need a bunch of 3D models. I appreciate you contacting me, and if I did, I would money. In this case, this Korean company said, "We have 10 million Koreans who have grown up playing Baseball Mogul, and we're going to build this massively multiplayer online baseball game, and we want to license the."
Wow.
Uh,
Nice.
I haven't had a hugely successful financial career, but I do have a couple $100,000 in a retirement account right now, and all of that came from the Korean company. So that was sort of a nice spike in the revenue, and the lesson is that we have very good copy protection on, um, and so everyone in like you know go talk to a 5-year-old Korean baseball fan, and they probably played Baseball Mogul as a kid,
Oh, nice.
and they did it because they pirated it. Uh,
Oh.
so, but that's okay because I didn't know how to. We didn't have a Korean version. They would pirate it, they would hack it, they would replace the English text in it with Korean characters, right? So they were making a great product and enjoying it, and making it really popular to the point that 15 years later, um, I got contacted and my company got a good amount of money, um, because of this pirating that had occurred. So I tend to think that that was positive, right? I'm sure a company like EA would have been like, "Oh, well, you should have gone into the Korean market and
Yeah.
done localization and so on." But I wasn't in a position to do that. But I was in a position to benefit, sort of from the free publicity that had happened.
I,
Uh,
I think some of the free stuff it does carry over, because I know when I was first starting this and I was only doing the computer games, Ron sent me over a couple of PDFs of some games. He goes, "Try these games." You
yeah,
know what I mean? And I would say the couple he sent over, I really liked, and I went and I ended up buying them.
yep,
And that's how it came to me. So it's like, yeah, he sent me the PDF. You're not supposed to do that in a whole bit, but he's like, "Try this," because I was getting into the hobby, and I tried it and I really liked it. And I was like, okay, and then I buy all the seasons. So that company made money because someone gave me that game for free, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. I mean, I joke that in a perfect world, like a billionaire would buy one copy of Baseball Mogul every year, and he'd pay me $100,000 for it, right? And then everyone would get it for free, and then I could keep working on it full time. That's not the way. That's not the way modern capital. So I have to sort of pick a price and sell it for them. But that's where coupons come, right? So it's like if you're whatever, there's people out there that are making 300 grand a year, and they will just come and buy 10 season ticket baseball seasons, won't wait for a coupon. And then there are, people like us who don't have as much money, that will pick and choose. Um, but I think part of that is, on the computer side. I think part of that is, if you're a 15-year-old and you don't have any money, you might pirate Baseball Mogul.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna whatever harass, try to
Yeah.
put you in something if you do that, because the secret for me is like when you're 20, 25, 30, you'll be like, oh, this they still make this game. I want to buy it. And I think, yeah,
Well, we lost Clay.
I think that
Oh, we got him back. Okay.
I think that's
Okay.
important.
Now, do you think with the cards and dice
Oh,
community, the cards and dice players being older players, that
oh
you know,
no.
no, we lost him for a second. We have you back. I don't know if you can hear us, but we have you back. We do have you here. Now we lost him. We'll try to get him back. So here's a question for you. I was going to ask Clay, but I'll ask you, SD. So he said we need season ticket hockey, right? And so that's always the thing when you're a game designer, right? And
Yeah.
you're putting out games, and we'll see if we get Clay back here.
Sorry about that.
And there he is. That's okay. So here was a question for you. I'm going to ask you and ST this, okay? So as game developers, I bet you get to ask this all the time. When you're going to create game X. So how do you go from creating seasons for your current game to putting time into a brand new game? How do you find that balance? And I'm going to take right off for 1 second. I'm going to get a drink, but you guys go ahead and answer that question.
Okay.
How do you find the balance?
Um, my balance is that I've been making games since I was 5, and I can't stop doing it. So when I was, whether I had a job at Midway Games making, you know, making console games or whatever, like I still would spend my weekends and nights just thinking about sort of card and dice games. And so something like Season Ticket is multiple years of me thinking about that and playing around with different ideas and finally coming up with a mechanic that I thought worked really well. And so, it's the same way now. Now the process of putting games in boxes is my daily. I would say my daily chore. I probably spend 20 minutes doing that. I'm not doing not doing a lot of physical sales. But like, yeah, there's the daily grind of putting out seasons, and yet there's always a new idea of like, oh, I wanted to do this with a baseball game. I want to do, or I'll play season ticket baseball, and I'll say, um, I love everything that's going on here, but I hate the fact that people have to spend like $100 for a modern season. Like, is there a way to get this data to all fit on a score sheet? So I have this game that I'm calling like scorecard baseball, where sort of you have some of the data that you need. So it wouldn't have all the granularity, wouldn't have all the detail of a game like Season Ticket, but it's something you could take on a plane maybe and just have in a few pages. And so I'm always just playing around with different ideas, and some of them get half finished. Don't. But I don't think. I think the people in this hobby that got into it because they sort of loved making games, for the most part, don't have to make time to make the games. Like, it just sort of, that's the thing they want to do, and everything else, like paying bills, is what they have to make time for.
Okay.
SD?
Absolutely. I wish I had more time to play the games, but
Yeah.
I find that I'm working on the games much more right now. But I like it. Like I'm stupidly passionate about it, right? Like I am having the time of my life. I tell my wife all the time, my happiness is at a 10 and my stress is at a 0.
Yeah.
Like I am just having the best time of my life and just maxing it out. And I've, as Dave almost talked about earlier, I've been working on matchup basketball,
Yeah.
right? And the concept that I have, I am in love with it right now, right?
Yeah.
But it still has to be priority 5, right? Because I still owe the community who has. I am so big on, if you release a game, you can't have it become abandonware in a year,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
You absolutely need to support it. I have promised anyone who has spent a dime on my games that I am going to produce content for the games throughout the remainder of my lifetime. Like that, there will not be a time that I leave it unless I, for some reason, physically cannot do it.
Right.
I I will be there working on these games for the duration.
Yeah.
So what is your
So for matchup
OnlyFans page?
basketball to come out and work, uh, it's going to take some time. Not because I don't have a concept, but because I feel um, almost an oath to anyone who has spent a dime on anything else I've done to put them ahead of anything I'm kind of doing in the background. And I know that you do that as well, Clay, because you keep on making content as well for the games that you have, even though there is something about us that even when we see, I tell you what, I've watched Casablanca more times than I've watched almost any other film
Yeah.
outside of possibly JFK. But um, every time I watch Casablanca, I think, yeah, I think there's a game here, and I think this is how it would work. And you would have to get the transit papers and get them out of Morocco, and you would have to figure out how Portugal wraps into this. And I, it's like it's so ingrained into you to
Yeah.
see a bike race and say, I think there's a game there, right? Because I think this is how you would do it. And it's just part of us. It's just
Yeah.
part of who we are. And I think what you and I are both trying to do now is just not make a game that is almost a carbon copy of some other game other than a couple things,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
We want to make completely unique new products that some people can play our games and say, I've never played anything like this before. That this is so different
Right.
and so satisfying,
Now,
right?
let me ask you a
Yep.
question here
Yeah, no, go
for
ahead.
both of you guys. So you just brought it. You want to make unique game, okay? Make something a little. How unique do you want to make? How far off the beaten path of all the cards and dice games that a lot of people have been playing for many years? I can't say me because I haven't been playing for many years,
Yeah.
but you go back to the Status Pro, the App, the Strat, the Big Three, if you want to call it that, whatever. How far away from that do you want to get that people have to almost learn a new language to play your game? Or do you want to keep people
Yeah.
grounded somewhat? How unique do you want to get?
Well, the sport has to be the sport. I mean, the sport has rules, and the thing about sports is that the rules are finite. Um, for the most part, you play 3 outs, you play 9 innings, you do the, you can't really, you can alter that into these sort of alternative sports games. Um, and Keith Avalone has more than a few sort of alternative sports games out there as well that are sports but with some big changes in the games. And those I think do extremely well too. But I don't think that you can go wacky necessarily and uh, figure out some. I don't think you could create a baseball game and have no pitching.
Right.
It's just all hitters.
Yep.
I think that might be too off, just because you're sort of leaving out half of the history of the game. And so you don't want to do something like that. The thing is, you are constantly, as you're playing the game, you're thinking of how do I make this more personal? How do I make it more narrative? How do I get it to tell a story? What story am I learning from the game that I have? What are the hard parts of all the games that I have? Is there a way to make them easy that's
Yep.
also still fun?
Yeah.
Is there a way to just make the game more personal? I've heard people for years talk about how their rock bands or how their television shows or how their films um, are an ingrained part of their lives. And I know sports are as well, but for a lot of us, I think these sports games have run parallel to everything that has happened in our life. God, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like they have been constant companions for us over the years, and they have been loyal companions over the years. Like, we've always sort of been able to turn to them when we might not have had the life that we wanted, or might not have been experiencing life as we wanted, or hit rough patches, or hit rocky roads. And uh, so you want to build a game that you think someone can really latch onto in almost an emotional way that brings all of that home. And I think that's our goal every time. And I know that you've, pardon the pun, but God, that you've hit a home run with this, Clay. I mean, um, that baseball game already is not very old, and it's the game that I play the most, as you know.
Yeah,
Uh, but but it means a lot to me now, and so I think we're all trying to create those games that someone can like take into their home and make a part of their lives for the remainder of their life, right?
Hmm.
yep,
Speaking of, you brought up something too about abandoning a game. Okay, and I want to touch on that for a second, and I'll throw this out to the chat room too. I get emotional when I play these games. It's part of
Yeah,
my past. It's part of my history. When I put the cards on the
absolutely.
table, like I have season ticket here right now, and I have my '79 Texas Rangers, and I have Toby Harrah because I was playing this the other day, and I go through my list, and I get Toby Harrah and Bump Wills and Mike Hargrove and all guys I remember and have their baseball cards. It's a very personal, emotional experience that I play
Absolutely.
when I play these games. And for some reason, for me anyway, I would have a hard time playing a particular game if it quote went out of business. And I don't know if anybody in the chat room feels the same way, but all these seasons of APA I have behind me. If John closed the doors at APA, it would feel kind of empty playing their game. Even though I own the cards and I can play them forever, it just feels like there's no future with this game going forward. They're not going to create any new seasons. They're not going to remaster any old seasons. They're not going to update anything. It's kind of a hollow feeling. And to this point, I don't think there's any games I play that have been abandoned, so to speak. But we
right,
talk all the time about the history of the hobby and the future of the gaming people, the people that make the games, and the whole bit. And if Clay would have said, "Hey, you know something? I just hit the lottery, and I'm going to go, go live in Zimbabwe or something like that in this
I'd
mansion."
actually more games if I hit the lottery, but yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, it would be like, do I really want to put season ticket baseball or football on my table here? Do I want to play any of the mogul games, knowing that it's done, that it's done, and he's
yeah,
closed shop and or whatever, whatever he's
right,
doing, it's to me, I just I don't know, it feels like I'm playing a dead game
right.
if a game gets abandoned. And it's only been one or two that I've noticed in the past that happened to, but it's like I enjoyed it and I can play it, and not says I can't play it, but I just feel like it's does does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean it's a two-way relationship. The first thing is you're on YouTube playing the games, and you're sharing them with people and sharing your joy with people and how much what you like about them. And if they couldn't then go buy that game or get into that game because it was out of business, it'd be a lot less fun for you to be sharing that game with them. um, and then I think on the flip side, like in an imaginary world where I won the lottery and just said, okay, I don't have to sell games anymore, I'm just going to like sit in my office and make games. That would not be any fun, right? We're making games because we want people to enjoy them. The fact that ST loves season tickets, you love season ticket, it's just incredible. I watch your videos with my wife sitting across the office, and she's happy by the fact that like I'm making this thing that people are enjoying, and that makes up the fact that I didn't go work for Google or whatever the side of that is. But it really, yeah, I mean, as ST says, we're able to sort of just live this great life of making that other people enjoy. Um, like I was watching baseball demos the other day. We were sort of talking about like sort of being constantly um, just constantly creating the content. And he sort of noticed that, like on one of the cards against righties, there was a 1-6-3 double play instead of a 1-4-3 double play. And he's like, that should probably be switched because I think the second baseman should be covering second. And I was like, oh, he's right. And I'm just in this really lucky place right now where like I care about what people think about the game. If they make a comment or a feedback that makes sense, I actually will sort of will look at the numbers and go, "Oh, he is right. I should do that." And I even love it when somebody sort of says, "Oh, there should be a bonus for 2 outs or something," and I get to actually explain to them, "Oh, there is a bonus for 2 outs, but I've incorporated it in a different way than a game like Strat." So like either just the two-way relationship is what adds so much energy, to the process.
I just kind of feel like if you were dating somebody back in the day, and it's just like, yeah, oh, by the way, I'm moving all the way
Right.
across the country, but we can still go out for the next couple of weeks, and you're just like,
Yep.
what's the sense of going out and going to a movie and hanging out, knowing that there's no future, that we're done.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it would feel like to me. I enjoy playing these games, and they're very personal for me, and I like to know that the company's still, like you said, Clay. I'm on here playing season ticket the other night, and a couple of people go, "What is this game?" It's like season
Yeah.
ticket baseball. You can go get it right now, and then they did. A couple of people said I went and bought the game or whatever it was, and you're right. If you weren't doing it, and they're like, "Well, why am I showing off this game that no one can play,
Right.
that doesn't already
I
have it?"
It's interesting. I talked to someone recently who basically shut their thing down, and I basically asked him, can we have the rights? No. Can we buy the rights? No. Can we figure out a how-to guide so that everyone who owns the game can at least make their own teams from here on? No.
Yeah.
And I sort of think if you're going to shut down your game completely, I think a really kind last act would be to email anyone that has ever bought your game before, email them a how-to guide.
Maybe,
on
yeah.
how to make teams
Yep.
for your game.
Yeah.
That seems like a perfect last act. But to just go out and sort of slam the door behind you and say, you can't have the rights, I'm not going to sell the rights, and there will be no how-to guide.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost couldn't believe it.
Right. That's weird.
Because what about the guys who have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to support this over the years and didn't know it was going to shut down? There was a very short-term announcement. Didn't have time to experience one more Black Friday so that you could really stock up. Didn't have that opportunity. I just think if somebody's going to go out for age concerns, for health concerns, for life concerns, totally understandable. Yeah. Totally understandable. But that last act could be a really kind, cool one if you just emailed everybody and said, I apologize, I have to go. Here's a how-to guide. Thank you so much for your business.
Yeah.
Yep. I guess I get kind of worried too. Like if I was playing a game and I spilled the drink on the rules or a card, or the wife threw something away, it's like,
oh yeah,
I can't get this card back, I can't get this team back, I can't get this rule book back. It's like this game, I might as well just throw everything I have away because there's no way getting it back. It's almost like if you buy a TV or a car that they don't manufacture anymore. It's like, where do I get parts for it? Things like that. I like to know that the game is still there in some way, and I can fix it if I have to, or buy something new if I want to. Or, I don't know. There's just something about knowing that they're still there, even if they don't want to produce any more seasons. But I can still go buy and get something from them. That's just being active. I think so. Abandoning a game. Yeah, I don't like that at all. A couple of people in the chat room are saying the same thing. Michael brings up the Sports Illustrated games of the '70s. Somebody revived them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that.
I have to go pick up my wife.
All right. Yeah. No. Well, thanks for coming by. We just wanted to have you on and talk a little bit about what's going on with the community and the whole bit, and just your thoughts on going forward, if you will. And so you're one of the game designers in here, so we wanted to get feedback on that. So,
ton of fun.
So thanks for that, and I guess we'll see you in a couple weeks, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty. What are you bringing? Can you drop any hints what you're bringing?
Oh, I mean, I'm going to bring a lot of teams to try and get people into the season ticket tournament that Joe Costa's organizing with the sort of 490 to 510 teams, the middle, the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
I think I'm going to be playing the 2024 Red Sox in that, which is fun. Perfect 81-81 team.
Nice.
Uh, but so we'll make sure that we have teams for that. Um, I mentioned that I have games that are half finished. I might bring some of those, and we'll see if that sparks joy in anyone, and if they say, "Oh, this is great, you need to play on this." So we'll
Yeah,
see.
that's the way to do it. You're gonna have a lot of rabid fans there that'll give you some feedback. And
No, I
you know,
mostly want to. I mean, I love playing. I like playing other people's games, but I really do love playing season ticket baseball and season ticket football with people. The more people I play with, the more it sort of adds to whatever, more content, refining the cards and seasons if I need to, refining the rules. Is oftentimes where people are like, oh, I didn't, I'll tell people a rule, they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize that, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess I playing it right or forgot to include it. So that's always really important.
nice, cool. All right, Clay Dreslough from the Mogul Games and Season Ticket Baseball and Football joining us here, and we'll see you at Digital to Dice Con in a couple of weeks.
Awesome, see you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
So yeah, it was fun having him on. I kind of hope he would
Oh,
come
it's
on and
fantastic.
chat a little bit about what's going on because you and Clay, some of the newer designers here. I mean, newer compared to some of the big ones that we talk about all the time. Um, but yeah, the whole abandoning of the game thing. It's there's been a couple of games I haven't bought and played, and they've moved on to other games, and it's like okay, but they haven't abandoned the game, but it just don't feel like they care about it anymore, and that's always been kind of a bummer. Um, yeah, so boy, we covered a lot of ground. Now we do have one more guest coming on in a few more minutes, so we're going to continue with the chat here tonight. And we want to thank everybody in the chat room. Boy, we've had a loaded chat room. We haven't had a chat room this busy since the COVID days, when Ron and I were
Hey, great.
broadcasting in 2020 every night for like 6 weeks, just to kind of get through through life back then. Um, and so, we might have another guest too. I'm getting a text here from a couple of people, so we might have some late arriving guests. Um,
Great.
see, where did I want to go with this next conversation here? Boy, we've covered a lot. Oh, here's another one for you here on my topic here. Um, the I don't want to say gambling per se, but how do you think the fantasy sports or the sports betting will factor into any of this hobby? Because let me tell you, I'm
Um,
at the rink and I got like the players and the referees between periods are on their phone, right? They're on their phone and they're checking scores and they're checking to see who scored goals and they're checking because they're all wagering there with on their phone. So I'm kind of wondering how the fantasy football and the sports betting thing will factor in because Ron think that there's a tie in with that because if you're on your phone doing that, maybe you want to instead of just bet on them, maybe you want to play them in a game.
I I think that would open the door to a lot of fraud. Uh, I wouldn't ever want to bet on a computer game, not knowing who's coding the game or what's in the code, or there's a lot of ways I think that can be rigged. So I don't know if we'll be betting on them per se. I know that horse racing games have a component in them where you can bet as part of the game on the races, and there are odds and all of that, uh, and payouts, which I think is a lot of fun. I don't know because I'm not a gambler at all, but I can tell you that's an entryway. My uncle, who I talked about earlier, who has now passed away years ago, who showed me the first dice baseball game that he had, a very rudimentary one die game that, this is a hit, this is an out, this is a strikeout, whatever. Just completely random game. But my entrance into this, he was in a rotisserie league at his work, which is how he got into sports games, and then he made his own dice baseball game. So that was an entryway for him. So I think staying in sports, anytime you're engaging in sports, there's a possibility that you will wind up in our hobby. So it could actually bring a lot of new people into our hobby, which I think is a positive thing. But as a person who doesn't gamble, uh, I would not be an expert on how you could incorporate that, except to say that I think that would open the door to potentially lawsuits and a lot of fraud based
But I said no.
upon.
If there's any way we could get someone that's always on their phone, okay, I want the Stars to win tonight. I want the Steelers to
Yeah,
win. If there's any way we
yeah.
could bring them over to the gaming community. Speaking
Oh,
about gaming community, we have
yeah.
another special guest here from the Apple Football Club, Jeff, joining us. Jeff, thanks for joining
Hey,
us.
Jeff.
Gentlemen, how you doing?
All righty.
Doing well.
So let's get right into it with you. Here's the big question of the night. You're a big time Apple player and you've been around a while. What do you think the future of this hobby is?
I feel like there's a huge passion. Well, ST, you brought it up in an issue a while back. Asking if this is the golden age of gaming, sports gaming, and it certainly is. I mean, I think so much of a lot of the perception is that we're kind of past this golden age that happened in the 50s and the 60s because the Apple and Strat, the two big names, but I mean, we've never had more games, never had better designed games. I mean, matchup football, ST, I mean, the amount of research you do there and more events. I mean, IndyCon, digital to DiceCon. So, it's really a prime time for the demographic. I think as people get away from the video side of things, hopefully, maybe they start to kind of gravitate to something that's a lot more tangible. It's a little more mature. It's just got that really intimate feel that video doesn't have, and there's a huge, we talk about it a lot on our channel that, you've got this massive fan base, people who really remember the classic era of sports. And we're in such a retrospective time these days. We're going back and honoring all our musical heroes, all our sports
Mm.
heroes. For instance, Skull Marketing, they represent all the classic Minnesota Vikings players, and you can interact with them and all that good stuff. So, you know, it just feels like there's still a lot of work that can be done to bring these kinds of games to really rabid sports fans. The trick being, how big can companies get? I mean, because all these game companies are kind of one man, two-person shops, So that's the trick. Is there's a lot of growth potential, and there's certainly an audience for it, but can you sustain the growth if you do find that bigger audience?
Hmm. Now, what do you think about the people aging out? Older people unfortunately passing away, maybe not physically able to do this anymore. Maybe they don't want to do it anymore. Do you think that there's enough people coming in behind to keep this going?
I think, I think, speaking of that, yeah, I think that folks, again, well, and this goes to kind of the habit of the Euro games. ST, I think didn't you have some Lords of Baseball going on?
Yeah, there are 4 or 5 guys who were playing Lords of Baseball, which I think took up, if not a whole table, more than a whole table. I mean, it's absolutely an expansive Euro game.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it,
Yeah.
and it bridges that gap, and I think that's another key to the puzzle. Um, they took great pains to kind of add. It's not really a statistical game, but it is that full fantasy, build a franchise, maintain the franchise, trade
Right.
players, acquire players. So it's kind of overlapping that, and some other folks have really kind of tried to bridge that gap. Certainly, Keith at Play Games is doing a lot of work to make the games more conversational, more narrative driven. So if more of that is coming along, and there are some other games that I haven't even followed up on. There's some gentleman designed a football game, American football game. It's all in kind of a sports magazine format. It's really cool. Uh, there's just a lot of great minds out there, and I think folks in their 20s and 30s if you're a sports fan, you're watching a lot of ESPN sports history. If you're a sports fan at all and you're going to stadiums and you're seeing all the history, you're going, you go to Cooperstown, you see all the young children brought there by their parents. So yeah, that bug isn't going away, and it's just again connecting those folks. So uh, as that as people kind of figure out that formula, there's definitely an audience for it because certainly the sports themselves aren't going away.
Yeah, I have in my inbox a couple of people going to have on the show that have got some football games going, and it's just, and just with my busy work, so I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I can't wait to get them on. And there's people that are still creating games. That's the thing. And you look at the conventions, and the podcast, the magazine, the tournaments that are going on. I think over the last few years, at least since I've been involved, it seems like people are kind of surprised how big the community is. I think that's one of the big things. And speaking about big communities, holy cow! Look who's joining
Marco,
us now.
Hey, Marco.
Gentlemen,
Hey, nice
good
to have
my
evening.
friend Marco.
Meant to join a long time ago. I got hung up by family stuff, so sorry about that. But so I've missed 99% of what we've been talking about, so I'm coming in cold. But hope everyone's having a good night. Good to see everyone. ST, good to see you again. Jeff,
Marco,
Dave,
great to see you, buddy.
So, first of all, how you feeling, Marco?
fantastic. We, I was thinking about it. So literally 1 year ago this week is when I was hospitalized with my bad infection and everything. And I can't believe it, but in a couple months, it's a year since my transplant. Everything
wow.
is fantastic. So I'm very, very blessed, very fortunate. I feel great. Things have been great. Can't complain.
So let's ask you this question here, as one of the younger guys in the hobby. What do you think the future of the hobby is?
I was thinking about this. I was trying to hide this from my wife at dinner because she was like, "Oh, you're not engaged," because I was trying to think in my head of what I was going to say when I came on. Um, I and I don't want to go down a dark road here, but I've never been more excited about the future of the hobby, and I've never been more afraid for the future of the hobby. And here's what I mean by that. So I've been trying to track the chat and I've been trying to chime in here and there. Um, I use my 19-year-old cousin as a really good example. And I know that's a small sample size and he doesn't represent all 19-year-olds. But I have tried, and he is a huge sports fan, watches every sport, every game religiously. Big Cubs fan, lives and dies with the, believe it or not, the New York Rangers. I don't know where that came from, but he has no interest in card and dice board games at all. I've tried everything. I've tried play games. I've tried Strat. I've tried APA. I've tried everything under the sun. He's not into it. And I ask him, I say, why not? And he says, too boring, too slow, too this, too that. And I'm thinking about it and I'm trying to remember what got me into it. And I would say, and I think I said this in the chat earlier, but what I would say is us sports board gamers are a very special breed in that most of us not only love sports, but we really appreciate the history of them and really appreciate, I know Jeff, big Steelers fan, right? Like I know like you appreciate those 70s Steelers. I'm from Chicago, big Bears fan. The most important Bears team of my life is the 85 Bears and I was not alive, okay? So I like
The
my
Bears.
yeah, da Bears, but my point is like I grew up those guys were legends, okay?
Absolutely. I feel that.
Back to my 19-year-old cousin. We got in a discussion the other day. He asked me, and I'm in a group chat with him and a couple other my cousins the same age. He goes, "Who's the greatest hitter of all time?" Talking about baseball, and I said, "I Ted Williams is my answer," and I would say maybe Tony Gwynn, and I think the most feared hitter of all time was Barry Bonds. That's my list. 1, 2, 3. You know what his response was? How do you know? You never saw him play. And I'm like, what do you mean? I can read. I can go on YouTube. I can go to a library. And he's like, well, that's all stupid. I would rather just watch the games. I'm like, I hope you're not the representative of this young generation because you're making me really upset. But also, I think he has a point. Like, there is something being lost. And I hope I'm not the old man screaming at a cloud here. But I feel like there's something being lost in today's game where it feels like the past is getting less and less and less appreciated. And in a hobby like ours, where the past is so important to keeping our hobby alive, that's what scares me.
Well, as
But
a
Marco, what we were discussing earlier was, will he be nostalgic for the
You're right.
players he likes now 10 years after they retire?
I would hope so. I would hope so because I think of my own life and um I'm very, 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 very nostalgic. But at the same time, when I sit down to play games, I'm also more, and again, small sample size is just me, but I'm also more interested in creating my own universes than I am trying to replay something that's already happened. Um, that's not to say I don't love whipping out matchup college football or Apple football or season ticket football and want to play the 85 Bears or the whatever, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. I keep winking at you, ST. Like,
It's coming. It's coming.
yeah, but like my point is like, yeah, the 2001 Miami Hurricane, Ken Dorsey, like Willis McGahee, like, oh my
Right.
God, those hit so many notes for me and I want to play it. But again, they're kind of one and done. Like, I play the game, I get my enjoyment out of it, and then I go back to my fictional universe or whatever.
I kind of wonder about. We talk about the old and new. I grew up in the '70s and '80s, and obviously we had Tom Brady here for 20 years, and you still got the people. You should have seen Y.A. Tittle in the '50s. And it's I'm sorry, I don't know Y.A. He might have been the best guy ever, but I says I thought Brady was pretty darn good, and now you got people that Mahomes, he's way better than Terry Bradshaw. So I think you're always gonna have that, and that makes it kind of fun. I do need one compliment about the '85 Bears though. Okay, just throwing us out there. Us New
Be
England
careful.
fans, we have a little discussion here once in a while. And we all said after that '85 Super Bowl or what '86 Super Bowl, the Bears crushed New England.
Yep.
How'd that work out for the Bears, and how'd that work out for the Patriots for the next 30 or 40 years? Like,
Yeah, but
would you
there
rather
again,
take the
you have
Bears
to.
and they're one and done, or would you rather take that beating and then have I think 4 or 5, 6? Is it 6 Super Bowls now? I
Yeah,
forget
but
what it is
again, you want to talk about history. There's a lot of context around that. That Mike Ditka is a deity in this town,
for that
and
one year. Yeah.
I would argue, he's also the biggest reason they never won again.
And this might surprise you, Dave, but a lot of Chicago Bears fans like that 85 Patriots team as well
Oh yeah,
because of Eason, because he went to college in Illinois.
Oh wow.
So he was actually extremely popular all over the state. Extremely popular. So I really actually like that team quite a bit because of Eason.
yeah.
So I don't feel like that those darn 85 Patriots. I mean, to be honest with you, I really like that team. That's a fun team to play,
Yeah.
especially if you happen to be an Illini fan, and
Yeah.
I am. So that's kind of our side of it as well.
Yeah. Well, we were happy to be there, and we didn't know how good the Bears were, But when we were like, no way, we're a wild card team, 3 wild card wins, and then we get
Well,
smoked.
yeah.
We also did we really think we had a chance against that team?
Yeah.
And
Well, conceivably they could have though. I mean, they beat
they were up
was
3
it
to nothing.
Marino and the Dolphins to get there, which that was the only team that beat the Bears. So
Yeah. A
but
question here about fictional. I'm going to throw this one to Jeff. And here's a question for you, Jeff. Marco brought up the fictional there. A lot of people do like playing fictional players for one reason or another. they just enjoy that universe.
Yeah.
If APA come out with a fictional football league, how do you think that would go over?
You know, I instantly think of oh gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. He did this. Oh gosh, there that lends itself to such narrative form, and you know that this is a hugely creative community. Um, there was a someone created an entire narrative. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, but it was the Big Joe. Someone please in the chat and the group remember this. It was Big Ed. It was the Big Ed thread, and he created this entire fictional narrative using the app of cards. You know, and I also think of that panel that Keith had at Play a couple of years ago. Fascinating. I think it would go over quite well. I
Really?
think.
Okay.
I wanted to do it for an app of card. I just don't have the stamina of like an ST or a Keith to kind of design it all. But they always sold those blank cards,
Mm-hmm.
and they were intended to be. You could create players who appeared once or twice at the plate or one or two downs, but obviously you can create any as long as you get the data you can create any players you want, and many APA players would create cards for their friends, or they create a high school team, or you could the sky's the limit. I think it would be a really wise area for APA to pursue, or any game. Although I mean the play engine is pretty amazing. And Ronnie Wyatt with his fictional boxing universe, that's a really crafty approach to it. And, it's so immersive and so engaging that I think it's always worth exploring for any game company.
Do you think that would get Steve Tower playing APA football? He
Yeah,
loves that
well,
fictional stuff, doesn't he? And he's good with it too. He makes you care about his guys.
yeah. Well, that goes to Marco, what you were saying about, your 19-year-old relative there that, and it's really a marketing problem. It's kind of a marketing puzzle. They talk about personas, who's buying your game, and who is not and Marco, we're definitely a subset of a subset of a subset. We're not. You take the Madden universe and you can shrink it down to that for these games, but that's fine. If you're a micro niche, that's okay as long as you satisfy that crowd. You not again, you don't have to be the biggest, and you're probably not going to be the biggest, player in the gaming universe. But with a lot of this crossover stuff, there's I think people are actually going to age into it, and if they're not worried about even the classic players, if they can create their own, I think it's just a slight nudge from the Dungeons and Dragons crowd or the RPGs to, if you want to get them into the sports games with the fictional side, by all means. There are triggers there somewhere, and I think it's a big marketing issue.
Yeah. No, I think about when I first got into the hobby, and it almost it's gonna come off bad, but it almost felt like looking at porn for the first time. It's like, should I be looking at this? Like, am I supposed to be on this website? All my friends are playing Madden. Why do I want to play this card and dice thing? And even now, it's almost like a taboo thing. Like, whenever I explain to friends of mine for the first time, I'm like, yeah, so I sit down and it's just me and it's dice, and this is when I start to lose them, and then it's cards, but it's real players. Uh, like they really are they play like their real life counterparts, and they're just so like Madden. No, 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 no. Like it's on your tabletop, like Dungeons and Dragons. Like kind of like. Oh, I didn't know you were into that. Like it's like no, but it's not that at all. Wait, 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 come back. Like and I'm not saying this to be funny or anything like that, but in the past couple years, I can truly only remember outside of our community one time, and it was actually in a like recently in like a church group that I'm in, where it came up so organically where I was like, yeah, I play these like board games, and they were interested, and they're well, like, how do you find this stuff? And I sent them to play because I figured, hey, if anyone's going to try this for the first time, that's probably the best engine to start them on, that or Strat. That's how I started with Strat. just something easy that they can get into. And I'm going to see that person next week for the first time since we had that conversation. And I'm going to ask, hey, did you check it out? Like, but I guess what I'm trying to say is the entry point is hard because the marketing, yeah, there is no marketing.
Right. Yeah.
Like there really isn't. Like, I found out about Strat because God, how did I find out about Strat now that I think about it? I honestly, oh, I know how. It was, I've told this story before. It was an article on NFL.com, probably 2009, 2010. And it was Rex Ryan, when he was the coach of the Jets, talking about how he grew up playing Strat baseball. And I'm like, what the hell what is he talking about? And there was a whole article. That article, by the way, I looked it up not too long ago. It's still there. It still exists. You can find it. And he tells a whole story about how when he was a kid, hey, I don't need to retell the story. We all have the same story. Like he was a kid, he played it, loved it, blah, blah, blah. And the premise of the article was how Strat was Madden for kids of the 70s and 80s, but it's
Oh, good
kind of
point.
gone
Yeah.
now, was like the theme of the article. And I'm like, is it gone? And then I kind of, looked it up, and then years and years and years later, I found it, and the rest is history, as they say. But someone just chimed in, word of mouth.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's word of mouth. It really is. Like you find one thing, and then that one thing just opens this whole can of worms, and next
Yeah.
thing you know, you got 85 games on your game
Yeah.
shelf, and it's how did I get here?
I find that there's three ways that people got from A to B. And one way is they started playing these games as a kid and just have played them all the way through. The other one is they started playing as kids, they took a long break, family, kids, job, whatever, and then came back to it. And the third way is someone like me who never played it and found it later in their life. So those are the three ways I think that people have played it. And I like listening to people's journey about that. Now here's the other question I'm going to throw at everybody, even in the chat room. Do you think anybody even seeks out these games, or is it like out of sight, out of mind?
Well, it's
I'll let you guys answer that.
I'm sure we've all seen Stratomatic's got a pretty strong ad blitz going on right now. I don't know if I call it a blitz, but I'm seeing a lot more Stratomatic ads. You guys have seen them, so I'm going to be curious to see if that helps, raise the awareness. I mean, Marco, you talk about that article, and it used to be the Street and Smith ads or the Baseball Digest, but the print spend isn't quite there though. I wonder if they're advertising in the fantasy sports magazines, if that might nudge things a bit, but.
You got to have an online presence.
Yeah,
Sorry to cut. You were about to say something. I'll say my quick blurb and then shut up. But no, you have to be online, and that's not just Facebook. That's Instagram, TikTok,
Yep.
all of the above. If you want to sell your game, period. Like these kids today, and
Yep.
I joke that like I'm an elder millennial. Like I turned 35 this year. Like I'm in a whole different category than my 19-year-old cousin, who's in a whole different category from like my 25-year-old cousins. Like you can really truly see the generational gaps. And these kids are online 24/7. I'm online almost 24/7, and I'm way beyond their generation.
Yeah.
And they unfortunately, or ADD is a real thing, and I think it's gotten, I don't know the medical research on it, but I think it's gotten way worse. And it's got a lot to do with these stinking phones. And these kids are on there 24/7. And I honestly, that's why I led off with, I'm a little worried about our hobby, because our hobby requires you to put everything away and just focus. And that's, for us, that's our therapy, that's our zen. But stuff has to happen instantaneous now to get those dopamine hits, and if they're not getting it, they're not interested.
But again, I think, and that's super. That's why I would bank if I owned a game company, I'd be banking on folks aging into the game when they're I'm not worried about hitting 20 and 30 somethings. If I can grab a few now, I'm great. And there's something, the Video Game Clubs of America. We've talked to them, Max Gemelli, and they teach kids. They've got chapters all across the country and a few internationally. They do board games as well. I mean, that's an avenue for folks to explore. And again, some people are just not going to be into certain types of games, but you know, uh, there are tons of 20 somethings into the certain types of games. And again, it's just that they call it the sales funnel, the buyer's journey funnel. And somewhere down in the funnel is going to be the sports games. Um, Hopefully, it's that word of mouth or definitely online. It's got to be everywhere. I mean, I would love to see a tailgating, a coast to coast tailgating presence of just a consortium of a couple of makers, just anything to be there tangible and explain things, even if it doesn't sink in immediately. And that's where some of those quick way. I think Dave, what is that pocket pennant or
Yeah.
that one small
Yeah,
key? I mean,
Minute Run,
what
great
a great
game.
way. Yeah.
I think there are two things that you can do now as a game company owner or as a game designer, because it's a small hobby compared to other larger hobbies. I would say one is that the people who are buying your game really need access to you, and you need to be able to respond. And I am, I mean, anybody who emails me will tell you, if you have a question about the game, I'm probably responding to you in a couple hours maximum,
Yep.
all hours of the day and night. And it's because you have to have a personal connection with people who buy or like your games, because again, if it's emotional for you, you want to share that and you want the game to be emotional for them.
Yeah.
So no one can share that like you can. No one can explain your game any better than you. But I also think, yeah, I mean, I offer a free version of the game as well with some free teams. So for me, at the very least, allowing people to read the rule book ahead of time and to just get an idea of what the game's about before they spend money, I think endears people as well to, well, at least he's trying to draw me in rather than being on a mountaintop, um, just saying, if they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. Um, I I can't imagine having that attitude today. I think there must be access. And I think, the game designers I like most are easy to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just in that one convention I went to, I've only been to one, and that was Jeff's last August, which
Mhm.
was just
Fantastic.
fantastic, and I got to sit with UST and play your game.
Mhm.
And it was the first time I actually sat and with anybody that had created a game and showed me how to play it. And it was
Mhm.
just so there was no guessing. There was no like, well, what about this? What about because you designed it, you know everything about it, and everything I asked you had the answer for right there. And I think the first thing you started to explain it, and I said, no, play it.
I remember that well.
I want you to I want to watch you play the game, and then I'll ask my questions.
Yeah.
And so after the second or third play, a lot of questions were answered because I didn't, I saw you play it. So I said, you don't need to explain it, just play it. And I watched you play it. And then a couple things I did ask and you explained, but that was the best thing. And even I sat with Jeff and I was like, Jeff, I have this old Apple football season, 1979. It says, I don't know what to do with it here because I have and he sat with me and I learned like so much about the old cards and the old charts and what was it? If you have so many backs that are a 6 or a 7 that it took away some pass completions or something. I wrote it down somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's like I go, wow. It says I didn't think I'd ever play this old season, but he come up with some pretty neat things.
Yeah.
And this is only by I don't think I would have got that in an email, but sitting across from him, he's like, well, look at this, Dave. Look at this, Dave. And he showed it on the chart and he showed it on the cards, and I was like, that is amazing. So when you sit across from somebody, it makes a huge deal, and that's what I really like about these conventions. And again, I've only been to one, but I got one coming up here, and I got two more coming up this summer. And just to sit across with somebody that either has played the game so much they know it really well, or the guy that designed it, boy, I tell you that's something. As you said, being reachable and attainable, that is huge when it comes to these games. It
Yeah.
really is.
I wanted to add 2 quick points. One, I went to my first convention last month.
Mhm.
Don't remember who put it on or what game
Hey.
he has or anything. No, I'm kidding. It was ST's IndieCon. And what I will say is I wish everyone can go in and out of the hobby. I wish anyone can go to a convention. There's nothing like it, of just like you said, Dave, like just get in front of a game, right? And like that matchup college football. Incredible. I hadn't tried it yet. I feel bad for even saying that. But when I sat down and played it with Brock, and we played the game of a lifetime that I'll never forget, and it's like, that's it. I'm a fan forever. I'm a fan of this game, and it is awesome. The second point, and you guys may have already talked about this, so if you have, we'll move off the topic. But um, point of entry in terms of cost is huge. Um, for example, and I will pick on them. They get picked on too much, so I apologize in advance. But this is Appa's biggest problem, in my opinion, because to this day, I have not bought my own version of Apple football or a season because I've watched a million videos. Jeff, I've watched almost every one of your Apple football videos. That's not an exaggeration. I think I would like the game. The problem is I don't want to drop $200 to play it a handful of times because that's what it costs by the time you get done with 1 or 2 seasons and the base game. And sorry, I'm just not going to do it. Like I got Appa Hockey because I watched Dave a million times. I'm like, I think I will like this. But I'll be honest with you, that game's been on my table less than
Yeah.
10
Well,
times since I
here's
brought
the
it.
yeah.
Like,
We had Dwayne Martz on earlier, and we brought this up to him, and he made a good point, and it's a point that I bring up too, is that yeah, if I'm going to spend $120 on an Apple football season, I need to make sure I play to get my money's worth. So Dwayne said he would buy a season of Appa and he would play it for 100 hours. He goes, do the math. It's 50 cents an hour that he got out of that. So it really comes down to what you got. I mean, I bought in video games for the Xbox or whatever, and I played once, and it cost me $60 to play that game because I played it once. And I've had other games that I put in hundreds of hours. How many, we used to play shoot zombies every night, me and the wife and some friends. I bought a $60 game and we played it every night for, a couple of years, every Saturday night. It's pennies per hour to play that at that point. So yeah, so if you drop $200 on a game in a season and it sits there, then you haven't got your money's worth. But if that's what this year, and I brought this up, I'm trying to play a bunch of games this year and a bunch of seasons. I'm throwing them on the table and I'm playing them. And if I can take Apple football season and get 2 full games out of it, I'm in the net for 6 or 7 hours. You know what I mean? So then I started doing the math that way. It's like, boy, that per game price comes down quite a bit. So you're right. If you don't play it, it's expensive and it sits there. It's like a car sitting in the driveway. But if you use it and you enjoy it, you can't put a price on it. I mean, the amount of joy I have out of Apple football, and I have a lot of seasons. I have some seasons I've only played one game on. So obviously that's not cost effective. It's $30 or $40 an hour to play this game. But even at that, can I look back and say, I wish I didn't buy that season? That joy I had for those 3 hours, I can't replace that. I can replace it with another game, let's say. But I mean, when I get that on the table and I walk away from an Apple football game, I don't get that feeling from a lot of things. And in a lot of games I get that too. But it's like, the cost again. How do you convince somebody? Yeah, the game's $40, but then it's 120 for the season. You're like, what are you talking about? That's 2 video games. I get it, but I think if you get a couple teams and you played it enough and you decided that you liked it and you think it was something that you would play, then you will get your money out of it.
I mean, if you want to play those 85 Bears, I mean, ST, you went for the 84 and the 85 season. I mean, if you did nothing else but play, and that just their season, and just to see how they played, maybe play, I don't know what, you could play a best of 7 with the Dolphins as a Super Bowl. When you start the creativity of, that's where the creativity comes in. I mean, Mark Miller, aka Jerry Quan, I mean, he's a project machine. You can create so many little tournaments or drafts. You can put Dan Marino on the 83 Steelers, for instance, or something. You can do that's one of the benefits of the APA style of carding every player, which of course jacks that price up. And then there's PT games, where they card every player who played a down in the NFL. It's something like 2,500 cards, but you've got to print that out in PDF form. I mean, there's a lot of trade-offs. Certainly, having PDFs available for folks, Marco, that's going to address that cost issue. Do you play a lot of print and play, Marco?
Yeah, I almost exclusively print and play now, but I will say, like, when I first started everything, I bought hard copies that got shipped to the house and all that. But to your point too, like, that's also, I think, what really got me into the hobby. I've said this story a million times on million different platforms or whatever, but the very first, when I bought Strat for the very first time, my intention was to do a fantasy draft. I didn't want to play with the players as carded on their teams. So I think, to your point, like, the creativity is really important, and because there's that age old debate in our community of, like, do you have to play it as is, or do you have to play it how you want to play it, or this or that. Now, I'm in the department of, it's my money that I spent and it's my time. I'm going to do whatever I want. And if you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure where I was going with that, other than, yeah, I mean, I think it is hard to convince people, though, Dave, to your original point. Like, you're right. If I'm going to play this game for $100, I'm getting my money's worth. But I still have to pay the $200 to find out if I like it. That's the problem.
Well, again, there's ways around. Again, maybe I'm just being a little defensive here because this is my hobby and the whole bit. But I mean, you could buy Apple football and it comes with a couple of teams, or Apple hockey, or Apple. You get a handful of teams to try it. So you're in for $40. So it doesn't mean you're in for a penny, in for a pound here. And if you don't like it, maybe you sell it for 25, and it's okay. It cost me $15 to try this, and I don't like it. Something like that. Like the Replay Gamer says, I love Replay Gamer. I invited him on, but he couldn't come on. I love him. And like he says, he gets on this, says, I bought another season, and I have a ton of Strat, I have a ton of APA, I have a ton of Replay. He goes, this is my hobby. This is what I do. He goes, I don't collect cars, I don't collect coins, I don't, he goes, this is my hobby. This is what I spend my money on. And to his point, that's kind of where I am right now. I don't do a lot of things. I don't travel much. I don't have exotic cars and fur coats. It's, if I get if I put in some extra hours at work, boy, that's money I put aside. I'm gonna buy a game. Or I'm gonna buy a season, and is there any better joy than getting that package in? I mean,
Nope.
come on, no matter what it is, it's like phone goes up, bing, package on the way, and you're out the window, and you're like, I can see, is that the truck? Oh no, that's not the truck. I mean, come on, and then he shows up, and you're running out. It's like, oh, give me the package. I mean, come on, that is part of the joy. It really is.
Watching that shipping container or that shipping updates on your phone. I don't know if you guys know the Dave Chappelle meme of, like, just, oh God, when's it coming? Come on.
I've lost sleep. No joke.
Oh,
I've lost
absolutely.
sleep. It's like, oh, tomorrow. It's. I'm looking at the phone. It's like, tomorrow it's coming. I forget what game it was. I think it was like one of the Appa baseball or something I bought. I was coming tomorrow. I can't wait to play it. And I was up all night. Like, oh, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Seriously, that's how much I enjoy this. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, my highlight of the year, as you know, Dave, is Black Friday weekend. I mean,
yeah.
And it begins with your episode of the show where I have a notepad by me and I'm writing down who's having what special. And I'm like, okay, because I really do save up specifically for Black Friday. And it's the one time of the year when I splurge a little outrageously. I'll be quiet about that. Um, but I and I do so joyfully. I mean, I don't worry at all about what if I don't play this season for a while or whatever. We don't know how long the company's going to be there. We don't
Yeah.
know anything. Buy now. Buy now and buy a lot, because if you're going to support the hobby, sorry to say, the only way that you can really support the companies is to buy stuff. I mean, that's really how they stay afloat. And I try to spread it out as well. I try to buy from as many companies as I usually play. So I really do spread it out. And Black Friday is like childhood excitement for me. I mean, man, I'm insane that weekend, I think. I mean, I get so excited when the packages begin to show up, and it really does remind me of those years when I I would order from Hafner Games and then
Yeah.
wait for the packages to show up.
Yeah.
But man, Black Friday weekend for me is exactly that.
It's been fun for us to see the growth of our Black Friday show, because when we started, 6 or 7 years ago, it was just, some normal stuff. But now you're thinking how many games have been made in the last 6 or 7 years. So you get different games, new seasons being released, and the whole bit.
Yeah.
And so it's like our show just keeps growing every year, because there's more games available, more people get involved in the Black Friday stuff, and it's one of our favorite shows. It's a lot of work. We do a lot of work chasing people down on email and confirming, and what do you got here, what do you got there, and but yeah, we rip through that, and yeah, like I say, people have their notepads out and take the notes on that, because, and I do too. It's like, oh, I'm going to get this and I'm going to get that. And I always go back to Downey every year and pick up a couple of seasons for one of their games.
Absolutely.
Or I stumble on something new. Like for me last year, like the ABA was something new for me, the basketball league there. So I bought a couple seasons. I think I bought the whole thing for Play of the Game basketball with that. I've recently started playing the World Football League. So I have that for second season. I bought that from Keith, and I think I picked it also up for some Downey games, and I think even Action PC football. I think I picked it up and played a game or two, and so there's always something new every year that you say, oh, I think I'm going to go check out this league, WHA. Sometimes it's a different league, sometimes it's a different game, and the whole bit. I'm really kind of hoping at some point I'll sit down with somebody and play some strat football and tabletop, because I have it, but I have an older version, and I heard the newer version is much better for solo play. So I don't think it'll replace the app, but it'd be fun to play it and play something different, So
Do they have a strat club in your area, Dave, yet?
I think the closest one is Long Island.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, which is a good 6 hours away, 5-6 hours away.
I know you got a couple strat guys, Joe Cards and
Yeah, I think that's
Jacoby.
Long Island. I think that's Long Island. They're coming up to the convention, so I'll talk to them about that. I think he did say he reached out to some strat people about trying to come up and bring the football, something like that. So, yeah.
I have a question for the group and for the chat that I think would be pretty interesting. What do you think is missing in our hobby? Could be,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
What do you think's missing? I know what my answer is. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but for me, and some games are starting to do this now, and I find myself gravitating towards the companies that do this, are it back to the realm of the fictional, right? Let me create teams and then let me progress players as we go through the seasons. There's not a lot out there that allows people to do that, and to me, that's like the final frontier, because the major reason why I got into this hobby is I was so intrigued by the idea of playing commissioner, coach, and GM all at the same time. and I could create my own league. I don't like something baseball's doing. Guess what? It's gone in my league. I could do whatever I want. You want 4 outs an inning? We could do that. You want 3 downs and play Canadian football? We could do that too. But in terms of and there's a few out there. I'm not going to shout out any game in particular, but for me, that's I think the biggest thing that's really missing is that
Like a career mode? Like a career mode?
yeah, okay, here's a format, a template of how many teams are going to be in your league. Here's how many players you need. Here's how you create the players, aka die rolls to give them their player grade or whatever. And then you put them on the teams and you get going and then you play your season. Then when the season's over, here's another set of charts that says what's the age of the player, and then you roll, based on. So if they're in the prime of their career, they kind of stay the same. If they're developing, they have a better chance of getting better or worse. And then in the end of their career, you'll kind of see them fade away. So like how I kind of think of it is like if we're playing baseball, right? The first 5 years of a player's career, it's all about development. If they hit 250, next year, maybe they'll hit 257. Maybe the following year, they'll hit 270. Maybe the following year, if they keep developing, they'll hit 300 and have a 50 home run season. Then when they get into that prime, they kind of stay in that area. And then as we get towards the end of their career, the 40 homers dip to 30, down to 20. That batting average starts to come down. And then you add different elements to it of maybe their trade value comes down. Now, without spilling the beans, I know there's a commissioner mode coming out for Al Wilson's Fascinating Baseball that does all of this. Really excited for that. But what I will say for me, that I think is what's missing from a lot of games
Does
is
OOTP do that?
OOTP does that, yes. But I shouldn't say but. I mean, yeah, they do that. I would say that their progression system, because I used to play OOTP religiously, and I've sort of gotten away from it. And one of the reasons I got away from it is I felt like some of their player progressions weren't realistic, meaning a 25-year-old phenom hits 50 home runs one year, and then literally 2 years later they're out of the league. And I know in my head that's not how it works, and you would see that, in my opinion, way too often in that particular game. Again, I haven't played OOTP in 5 years at this point, so maybe they've corrected that, so I don't want to speak out of pocket. But yeah, so some sort of career slash GM slash progression module, because I just think about like Keith's games, right? He has all these wonderful seasons for all these fictional sports, and I love them all. I'm not knocking it at all. I love every single one. I own all of them, play them religiously, love it. What they are lacking is, in my opinion, we finished Baseball America, and now I have to sit and wait to see what happens to these players a year from now, right? And this player is no longer on this team. He goes somewhere else. And yeah, sure, when I get that package, I could trade the player right back to my team. But like, I want to have that control and that ability to progress that player how I feel they would progress. Or, give me a little bit of autonomy here to like roll my die and say, oh my God, he rolled a 66. And that means he goes 2 letter grades up. So this, average player is now a superstar he had a great offseason. I don't know. But so I'm long-winded. I apologize, but that's a my finite capstone is what I think is missing from most games is the ability to do that.
So you want to take your 85 Bears, and at the end of that season, roll them into 86, and
Sure.
kind of have your own outcome for 86 and 87.
Sure. Why not? Absolutely. Like if you want it, I was thinking more in the fictional realm, but if you gave me that option to take, for example, the '06 Bears that lost in the Super Bowl, right? In '07, what would have happened if Rex Grossman actually turned into a competent quarterback? What would have happened? Would they have gone back? I don't know. Like, I have no idea, but I would love to find out.
Yeah, interesting. So, Jeff, what do you think's missing?
I think it's again. I'm just going to go back to the awareness. I mean the functionality. I mean, the availability of fictional capabilities aside. I mean, the types of games available and the detail. There's 10 types of any game, any genre you want out there. It's just a really more events, more person to person contact, just more awareness and to ST's point, more availability, more accessibility to folks, which is what D2D is doing, and what all the events do. The Appy event. Someone asked if there's an event in Vegas. There is. It's an Appy tournament by Chris White, who will be at Digital Dice Con. So I just think it's the awareness and the presence. A little more focus on being where your potential customers are.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Totally.
marketing a whole bit. ST, what do you think's missing?
I wrote down a couple things. One, and I think this is all or zero for the most part. I think half of the game designers are pretty good writers, and I mean they write a really good rule book and rule set, and I think half the games are severely lacking in the rule book, and they may be a phenomenal game, but the rule books are tough reads. So I wish there was a little bit more put into the writing of the rule books. Two would be requests. One thing that we like to do every 10 sets in matchup is I will email guys who I know play the game often and who talk about it online and say, what team would you like to see? And that goes into a set, into one set every 10 sets is just all requests. And I don't know a lot of games who really are doing polls about what you would like to see next, are doing requests about the teams you would like to see, the athletes you would like to see. But I would like to see requests and input from the gaming community really become an important part of what comes out next.
Okay, I guess the only thing I would add to that is the marketing of the game, showing off the game. I think everybody should have a YouTube channel at this point that has a game, whether no matter how big or how small you are, showing the game off, answering questions. If not, take advantage of the community out there that are making these videos. There's a lot of people besides myself that are out there playing your games and showing it off, and that partner with them. Partner with them. I don't. Ron Jucker needs to partner with Action PC Sports Baseball. I mean, he just plays a ton of that, and he probably sells a lot of that game. So they need to reach out to him and say, hey, Ron, we want you to test the game, or what do you want in the game, the whole bit, show it off. I mean, and that's the thing there. So yeah, getting the word out, I think is the biggest thing. And I also think though there's something that has to go a little responsibility on the community as a whole, or the players of the game, and I call it the Amazon effect. Is everybody's expecting all these individual creators and small companies to be like Amazon, and they want to get instant response. They want their game in 2 days, and it's these are smaller people, and even myself, people ask me a ton of questions. Sometimes I'm a day or two before I can really sit down and focus on what they wrote me and what I'm going to write back to them, And I think we all got that. We get on our phone and boop boop boop. I ordered a new toaster from Amazon. It'll be here tomorrow. Or it'll be here at 9 in the morning, and we expect that. And then we go and we place our order with somebody else, and then 2 days later, yeah, we got your order. Then 2 days later, it ships out, and you're going, oh my gosh, So I think we just have to realize that the companies and the people there are not Amazon.
No. And that It's interesting. I've been in following all this tariff business. It's really a lot of good information's coming from the game companies, whether it's Stonemeyer or Worthington, outside of the sports game community. But these are bigger entities doing more volume. But they're talking about some of them have been really transparent about how they're doing business, and that transparency is a huge, expectation among certain folks. Uh, they're so it's really nice that they're explaining that, being available, um, and to your point, Dave, I think like the music community, for instance, I mean, there's lots of the influencer community in musical gear. That's certainly a model for where, the mom and pop companies could kind of leverage more of the influencers, even though it's a smaller community. It's really kind of, it's a craft community, and
Yeah.
leaning into that, if you will, embracing that. It's like, look, this is very carefully. If you want a game that really, really works, and when you buy it, it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. The thought process behind it is impeccable. Grant Fines in his game, for instance, I, anybody, all the designers today. I mean, the thought process is so much better. I mean, I think it's emphasizing that it's worth the wait to get these carefully crafted games. That might be some of the messaging there.
I want to shout out I've been following the chat. Ryan Strauss brought up two things that I think are really important. One, but they go hand in hand. So he mentioned MLB Showdown. I played MLB Showdown too, Ryan, and we found it in the same place, which was Wizards of the Coast. So the point they were talking about in the chat, I don't know if you guys have been following, is availability of games in stores, which I know is, really hard in today's market, or really any market, I'm sure. But there used to be and I don't really see them anymore because I mean malls are kind of dead to begin with, but you could walk into any mall in America and there would be a Wizards of the Coast or like a Gamers Paradise or something like that. And I remember as a kid just spending, trying to run away from my parents to get to those stores to see what was on the shelves. And now that I think about it, the very first card and dice sports game I ever played was MLB Showdown. Um, and you know what? I was cleaning out this room a couple days ago and I found the cards and I don't know what I did with them, but I still have a set of MLB Showdown. The cards were beautiful. They looked like trading cards. They literally looked like trading cards, and on the back would be their, I don't know if it was on the back, but maybe on the bottom would be their stats and then their roll results, and it was just one, if I'm remembering right, it was just one 20-sided die, and that was the whole game. And you would play a full game of 9-inning baseball, and it would be done in 20 minutes. And it was geared towards kids, and that was my sort of introduction. So any way the hobby can get in front of people that's how they got to do it. If any game designer, any company in general, just, I'm not saying it needs to be in brick and mortar because I unfortunately think that's going away, but someone mentioned TikTok. Yes. What we do on YouTube. Yes. Like getting on Instagram. Yes. Like all these companies need to be on all those platforms. That's how it's got to be. It's just the way of the market now. And for us older guys, it's kind of hard to see that. But then when you hang out with my 19-year-old cousin,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we'll be sitting there watching a game and he's, oh, nice goal. And he's just scrolling. I'm like, someone get to him.
I see. I got to admit, I do that when I watch TV. If I sit down and I like Sunday I watch football, or if I put on a hockey game, let's see what's going on in Discord. Oh, let's see what's going on here on Facebook. I do. When I play the games on the table, not so much. I'll have something going on YouTube usually, and I'll watch. But when I'm watching TV, I don't watch TV much. And when I do, we're watching something stupid or whatever, and I'm on my phone the entire time. I am. I'll admit that. But when I play my games down here, though, I'm focused on the games, and that's my getaway from the technology. Even if I'm playing a PC game, I'm still, my mind is working, on the PC game, or my mind is working on the tabletop, and um, so for me, like TV, it just like you just veg out, and I get bored, and I don't have the attention span to watch a movie anymore. I don't have the attention span to watch a full hockey game or a full baseball game anymore. I look, it's like I don't have 2 or 3 hours. It's just not a good use of my time. So for me, I'd rather come downstairs. I can't wait till supper's over and the wife's like, "Yeah, I'm tired. I'm going to bed." Oh, okay. And then boom, I come right down here and I play my game. And when she's like, "Hey, you want to watch a movie?" I'm like, you know, how long is the movie? you know, so yeah. For me, I hear what you're saying about that. Kids are on their phone all the time. Again, at the hockey rink, everyone's sitting there on their phone between shifts and between periods and checking something out or whatever. I get it. Um, but like I say, when I come down here, I shut down. I just play on the table and I don't worry about that stuff. But sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm on my phone, especially watching TV. So, if I don't know if there's a way that, like I say, I think when you show them this stuff, some people are like, oh wow, this is great. There's a world outside my phone. When you show them this stuff. So, but yeah, some great things here. I kind of think I look like I was talking at the beginning of the show at ST when we said, what do you think the future of the hobby is? I'm like, well, what was the future of the hobby 6 or 7 years ago? With people saying, well, the hobby's, we're all getting older and that's it. Well, we've had 6 years of digital to dice and, we've had ST Patrick's magazine and now we have, more conferences and conventions that you can shake a stick at all over the country. So somehow, some way, you should be able to go and meet up with people to play. And how many new games have come out in the last 6 years? Really. You think about that too. I mean, we have so many people coming to Connecticut that have brand new games. That are bringing their games, and so we got old games, we got new games, and it. I don't know. I look back to where it was 7 years ago, and it's in a much better spot, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
And I'm
totally.
kind of hoping that it goes that way. And who knows where the technology part's going to come in on this? I still think there's always a place for cards and dice. That's my feeling because how many people that we talk to in the community, it's like, man, I've been on my computer and my phone all day. I want to unplug and I want to just chill out here in a tabletop. That might be an older guy thing than it is a 19 or a 25-year-old. That's for sure.
Well, I'll kind of chime in on that too because I feel that I'm definitely, I mentioned it earlier. I'm definitely on the line of like young old, I guess, and I catch myself every day vegging out on that phone. But when I get to the tabletop and I'm able to just push the entire world away, because when I game, I either have a Cubs game on the laptop or whatever while I'm playing,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm listening to music or whatever, or one of you guys or whatever, and it's sort of like a magic elixir. It's like, hey, I unplugged for the last 2 hours, and that felt great. That felt really great to not have to stare at my phone. Oh crap. My wife texted me 27 times. Like, oops, and but it's great for those 2 hours that you
Yeah.
get, it's there's nothing like it. And I think in a world today, we might have discussed this ST at the IndieCon at some point, but I think people are starving, whether they realize it or not, they're starving to unplug.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
they're having
Yes.
a hard time doing it. I'm one of them. I'm sure every one of us are. And I would tell anybody, try one of these games. Just
Mhm.
try it. It's like therapy. It really is. I feel
Vinny, look at Vinny. Said, I embrace every card I flip and every roll of the dice I make.
yeah,
That is probably the line of the night as far as I can.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
what we do, right? It's just we write our own stories. We have our own adventure game here. We see, what goes on. It's just, we get those 5 runs in the top of the ninth, to the bottom of the ninth, to force extra innings again on my channel. I just want to go to
Always.
bed, and now I'm in extra innings. But anyway, everything that happens on the table, I mean, every Apple football game I play, no matter what it is, no matter what the score, I walk away. It's like, wow, I feel like I myself just created a football game and played it here. And I
Yeah.
never ever got that with any video games, like with Madden or anything like that. I have had fun with the video games, but when I sit here and call the play and you roll the dice and you go to the chart and it's this and it's like, it I don't know how it does it. Just all these games, they do a great job. It feels like you're playing a game. It just it's hard to describe. There's no other feeling that you get this way, and it's very enjoyable. And I wish more people would give it a try because it is your own adventure game. It really is. You're rolling the dice and you're figuring out what's happening, and then you might get into a situation where you're like, well, it's a little gray area. You know what I mean? What happens here? This kind of doesn't make. I mean, does the guy score or not? Does the guy get the touchdown or not? I mean, is this a goal or not? I mean, sometimes you just get a weird combination of stuff on your table, and that's what makes it fun because you make that decision.
I will. I'll make this quick, but I think we talked about this before, Dave. Where I'm a huge Madden player, way less these days than before. College football 25, in my opinion, is the greatest sports video game that's ever been made. It's awesome, and finally, some EA Sports actually decided to put effort into a video game. It's a great game, but what I will say about tabletop sports games, I am continually amazed across. It's not just second season, APA, Strat. I sat down and played matchup college football for the first time and played the greatest game I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that because the guy's right here. Like, it really was. I mean, ST, you were there. Like,
Fair.
it was 21-0 Ohio State, then 28-21 Michigan. Then there were two recovered onside kicks and a
Oh
Hail
wow,
Mary.
wow.
And the game ended because Brock decided to go for two. He needed to, and Michigan stopped him, and that was the game. Final was 34-32, something like that. My point is, when I
Great.
sit down and play a video game, which I still do plenty, when those games happen, I can't help but get the feeling that something was. Dave Dave watched it too. He said rigged. Yeah. Dave was chirping the whole game because I was Michigan. There's Brian. Brian watched it too. Everyone walked away from that game saying it was the greatest game they ever saw on the tabletop. I'm not at my hand to God. Like, I'm not just blowing smoke up my own, you know what. But when I play, we got another college football 25 player. When I play those video games, I cannot. When crazy things like that happen, I cannot stop myself but thinking, "Wow, this is rigged," or "Wow, this is just a weird coincidence that player made that interception in that moment." No way, come on. But when you're on the tabletop and that tension is building and that that final, it's the final drive. You see how many ticks you got left, and you're like, and you're calling the plays. You start sweating a little bit, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
all right. Do I feed, you know, whoever, do I feed, pick a running back? Do I feed Willis McGahee here, or do I, what do I do? Do I need to find Jeremy Shockey over the middle? What? All right, let's call it short pass. Let's see what happens. And it's incomplete. Oh, okay, second down. 4 ticks left. All right, what do we got? We need 35 yards. You start, and you're going, and then when that play happens, whether it's that pitch in baseball, that power play in hockey, whatever the game is, when you get to that moment where in the back of your mind, this is the last roll of the game, and this is where the game's hinging, there is nothing like when you throw the dice and you're like, here we go. Let's
You
see
know,
what happens.
you know what I think it is because you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not your dexterity with the joystick.
Yep.
It's not the computer doing it and you questioning I played an Apple football game the other day. Cowboys Eagles 77. Cowboys are losing, and I'm deep into Cowboy territory, and I roll the 66, and Danny White hits. I think it was Drew Pearson for 50 or 60 yards. with 45 seconds left in a one
Yep.
score game. And I'm thinking the game's over, and he hits him, and he brings it down to like the 20-yard line of Philadelphia. And now I get 4 cracks from the 20 with, under 45 seconds left to do this. They didn't score, by the way, but again, holy 60. How many? It's all the way down to the 20. Timeout, timeout, timeout.
Yep. Yep.
And it was just some of the most amazing times I've had on the table here. And they didn't get in, but again, I rolled the dice so I could see that. So
Yep.
it's on me, or it's on the card flip or whatever. So I couldn't blame the computer or anything like that. I just throw the controller down. There was none of that. It just was fun. And these moments happen. I mean, me and ST were playing Apple football at the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
and he's got the 76 Buccaneers, and I got the 76 Patriots, and he was up, like 9-0 over the Patriots, and they had negative yardage. I think they recovered a fumble. They picked off a pass. But every play he ran, Tampa Bay went backwards. Somehow they got in the end zone. I think it was a pick 6. And they missed the extra point, of course. And
They
then
did.
there was another fumble, and they kicked the field goal. And we didn't, I
That's
know,
right.
we played like half a quarter. It was like 10-0 Tampa Bay. And
But
we
it
were
was
just,
great. It was great.
we were having so fun. And now I can only imagine if we continued, Patriots would have come back and probably crushed them. But it's just the idea that it's just, you can picture them in Tampa Bay, the expansion team, up 10-0 and the Patriots, and they're all gung-ho, and it's like, if we finished this game, it would have turned around. But at the moment, it was just like, I can't believe this. The Tampa Bay is they're minus 17 in yards, and they're winning 10-0. How is that even possible? I think they got a punt return or something like that. I forget what it was, but yeah, these moments happen on our tabletop, and it's unbelievable.
Well,
It
that
really
actually.
is.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say I played a game very similar to that recently on my own tabletop where I think it was second season Express, I want to say, and it was in my fictional league, and one of the worst teams in the league was having a horrendous game, but whoever they were playing on the other side, I think it was Denver Pittsburgh. This will mean nothing to you guys because it only exists on my tabletop. But it was Denver's the worst team in the league. They have no quarterback. They have nothing. Pittsburgh's like right on the cusp of the playoffs, and it is like a 6-0 slobber knocker. There's fumbles, and in my head, I'm like, oh, it must be snowing. And I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened, but basically, Pittsburgh was up 9-3, something like that, and there were only 2 spaces left, and I'm like, all right, throw it deep, whatever. I'm Denver. I'm like, throw it deep, and they hit a Hail Mary and win the game. And I'm like, how? Like
Yeah.
these freaking games. How?
Yeah, it
And
is so
sure
fun.
enough, you look, all right, that's a 6. That's another 6. That's another 6. XP, 9 spaces, touchdown. Like, huh? You
That's
know?
what these games do. And there's one thing I've noticed about the board game and well, the table sports sim game community compared to video games. All right, something that we never did with video games, or very rarely, was share our results.
Yeah.
And you look all day on Facebook, on Delphi, anywhere you go, YouTube, people are talking about their games. And this is what happened. And this is the game I played. And this guy got the home run. And this guy got the Hail Mary touchdown pass. And, it's something like I've never seen in any other hobby. That we play these fake games on our table, and we're so excited we want to share it with people, and a lot of people enjoy that. I enjoy following some of the other games and seeing how it goes, and just you don't follow along every play by play, but it's just like, oh wow, look at the result of this hockey game or this football game here. And I always thought that was kind of neat that we share our game results.
That's definitely evolved since I mean, when you consider that YouTube came out in 2006, Facebook in 2009, and blogging happened around then, it's really people have picked up on that, in the past 10 years or so. Mark Ruckhouse, by the way, is a gentleman. Check out his Big Ed project. I think it's still on the Delphi forums. Speaking of another place where people share their long form narratives, or the late great Apple player Roy Langens, he did a game a day for about 22 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's check his game a day, in terms of narrative form. It's really amazing.
The interesting part about cards and dice as well, for me at least, is that there are no bad games. And what I mean by that is there might be a game that you play that would have been horrendous to watch on television. But as you're playing it and you have all the cards out and you're rolling dice and the names keep popping up, even on a game that would be a bad watch, man, it's a
Yeah,
fantastic
yeah,
gaming
yeah,
experience
yeah,
because you're still going through every play and every yard in football or I got a guy on third in baseball with 2 outs, and even though it's 8-1, oh my gosh, there's tension.
yeah,
And uh, it it's like when you love that game, there is no way that you can play a bad game because you still get to see your players and you
yeah,
still get to roll the dice and you still get to write on your score sheet
yeah.
and you still get to go through this wonderful, joyous experience that a few thousand guys are having at the same time as you and
Take
going
that.
through
I'll
the
take
same
that a
thing.
step further. I'll take that a step further. Is you get in these situations. We talked about all these great games, great finishes. What about the games that aren't great games? It's
Yeah.
8-0 in the second, or it's 31-3 in the football field. There's even fun to be had in those because that's when
Oh,
you're
of
like,
course.
something. Okay,
Absolutely.
this quarterback's coming out, and I'm bringing in the backup, and he starts he
Yeah.
starts driving the team
Yeah.
down the field as the backup, or you bring in some guy that played 3 games in baseball, and you say, I did that the other day with the Red Sox. They had some guy that didn't play all that much, and the Sox I put him in as a pinch hitter, and he singles. It's like, holy cow! Here's this guy
Oh,
that didn't do anything. Or you put in a guy in a hockey game, and he scores a goal. It's like, I mean, the game's decided. You know who's going to win, but still, you salvage some moments in that with bringing in the
Yeah.
scrubs, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. The backups are getting it
great.
done.
Is great.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Dave, I go the other way. If a team's blowing somebody out, I try and get the team that's getting blown out to get back in it. But also, I think it's fun trying to run up the score. Like, can no,
What a
for real.
jerk!
Like,
What a jerk!
can the quarterback throw for 400 yards? Can the running back get 250? I start getting even more aggressive. I'm like, go for two. See if they can set the single game scoring record on my tabletop. I go the other way. I think
Oh
it's
wow!
fun.
See, that's a topic coming up on the show is keeping it real. We're talking about keeping it real, and I was playing the other. Who was I with the other day? I was playing a baseball game. It was Mike. I was down in Connecticut with Mike Canistrari, and he was showing me History Maker baseball, and so I had the 73 A's, and the first guy, I don't know if he singled or doubled or tripled. He tripled, right? Billy North tripled or something like that, and so I brought up the next batter, and I was like, I think I'm going to squeeze him. He's like, can't squeeze him. First inning. Nobody out. You can't squeeze him. I'm like, I want to squeeze him. Find out how I squeeze him. You can't squeeze him. And me and Mike were going back and forth. He goes, "Do you really want to squeeze him?" I'm like, yes, I want to squeeze him. I want to find out, but he says, he goes, that would never happen. He goes, there's no way that, Bert Campaneris is going to try a squeeze play with Bill North at third base in the first inning of a baseball game. And so we got to going back and forth to that. But it's just kind of like, well, I want to test the game here, But again, that's something you would never do. So the topic of keeping it real is like, yeah, okay, I would never do that. But it's just the idea. So Marco wants to run up the score. Myself, I'm handing it off out of the I formation 3 times and just running a few minutes off the clock and kicking it. But again, you can do whatever you want. But that is here's Mike. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He would not let me. He's like, no, I'm putting the game away and going home. But that's the thing about it. You can do anything you want in the game,
Yeah.
and you can
It's
run
your
it up. You
world.
can go for records and the whole bit, or you can just kind of just run out the clock or whatever it is. It's very enjoyable. It very is.
Every time I sit down to play a game, I do no matter what game it is, I have like a little mental checklist in my head. Like, all right, what's a single game rushing record? Whatever it is. I think in the NFL, I think it's Adrian Peterson 264 or something like that. And so I start setting these like little targets, like 6 touchdown passes. Like, can he get it? Whoever it is, just little mementos in my head of like, hey, if this guy goes over 200 rushing yards, like start really clocking all the rushing yards because he might get close.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Walter
So-
Payton, 275 against the Vikings. Speaking of
Yeah.
1977, right? So
Yep.
The other great thing about the cards and dice is like Jacket always says, the cards never get tired. They never get tired, And again, you want to keep it real. You don't want to rush, Walter Payton 100 times in a game. But again, like Jeff said, you want to go for some kind of a record or something like that, and you can keep handing the ball off, and it's up to you what you want to do. I mean, and that's the fun thing. The cards never get tired. Pitchers never really fatigue unless you want them to fatigue. Computer games, that's all factored in, and things happen. But on your tabletop, you're the boss. You're the dungeon master. You know, it really does that.
Hey, speaking of the boss, I've got to run here and let my wife kick my butt in another game of Wingspan. So
Nice.
it's been a great conversation, folks. I just want to mention Parallel League mentioned playing on Zoom, and there are a lot of folks who are playing on Zoom now. So there are definitely methods out there.
Oh, nice.
So
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. So
Great
between the conventions and that. Yep. So and we're gonna see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We'll see you in Connecticut there, and we'll get you playing some map of football as well, whatever else you want to do and talk about there. But you were the oh, I forgot to bring it. I have an old football game
All right.
I am bringing to Ohio, and I don't think you've ever seen it because I didn't see it
Oh,
last year.
okay.
If it was there, I didn't see it, and
All
it
right.
was only when I get home that someone said, "Dave, did you bring your old football game?" And
Yeah.
I didn't, and so I'm gonna bring it.
Ooh,
I,
all
I
right.
think I think it's called Thrilling Football.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Awesome. We're gonna have to
And
set up a special table for that one.
yeah,
Bring it in on
we
the
should we
nice
should definitely play it. It, it
art
is it
guard.
is one of the most basic football games, but I think it was made in like the 40s or the 50s.
Wow, that's
Yeah, and
awesome.
there's an old gaming store up here. I don't know why I popped in there, but I grabbed that, and a golf game too. So I'll bring the. Oh, and I have a racing game
Oh, awesome.
I'm bringing too.
Cool.
Uh, I think it's called like Hugging the Rails or Daring Races or something, and it's got a big board, circular board, and it has metal die cast cars.
Wow.
I think there's 5 or 6 of them, all different colors. And what you do is you have this thing that looks like a lollipop. Okay, it's like a tube with a circle at the bottom, and it's flat, and there's all these little beads in that circular thing that correspond with the car colors of the cars. You shake it, you flip it upside down, and that's the order who rolls that round. And everybody rolls one die and makes their moves. And after everybody made their moves, you shake it around and you see who goes first the next time. And it's the simplest game, and it is the funnest game you'd ever play. And it's really old too. I forget where I found it, but so I'm gonna bring that to D Con. So we'll have some really old games to play. Oh, and Joshua saw it. Yeah, Dave's car racing game is awesome. Yeah, I've played it a few times here on the channel. It is kind of fun. It's so I'll bring them both to Connecticut, but I'll definitely bring the football one with me down there. And Steve Tower will be there. We'll have to play some Steve Tower football with that. I think
Yeah,
it actually has a wooden dice, a
all
wooden
right.
die.
There you
That's
go.
yep. So
Back when quality was quality, boy, I tell you what.
it's like the Romans.
It's, oh man.
But
Yeah,
Jeff, thank you so much for coming by.
thank you, sir.
And we'll probably be
Great to
wrapping
see
up soon
everyone.
anyway. Yeah, I'll see you in a couple weeks in Connecticut.
All right. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Bye
Take
bye.
care,
Good night,
Jeff.
everyone. All right. How do
I think you just yeah, there you go. So
let's make sure.
I think he's off there, and we'll come back to the start here, and we'll take Jeff away. So now we're back to the three of us. So we can wrap this up pretty soon, boy. We went a long time here. Boy, the chat room's been busy here tonight. A lot of people want to talk about what's going on in the hobby, and I think that's just a testament of the future of the hobby too, with how many people showed up tonight and had things to say and put in their comments and the whole bit. So yeah, so this was a fun time. Patrick comes in and says, "I was thinking of Stratomatic in good financial health. I think because many ways they expose their product. I would say that yeah, they're doing quite well. I mean, the way that they have computer games and mobile games and the whole bit. I wish I played more mobile. I just don't. You know, even if I was like I say when I'm on my phone watching TV, I don't know if I'd be playing a baseball game. I think I am going to pick up a month of Strat Max for the ride out to Ohio when I go out there with Mike in August. I think that's the plan. And it would be fun just to kind of play a couple of games on the way out there in the car, you know. So I think that might be something I might do. Um, but yeah, Strats. I like what Strat's done over the last few years. I really have. I like how they've expanded out there in the whole bit. So, but anyway, any final thoughts from you two gentlemen here before we wrap it up? Chat room. We got a lot of you still in the chat room here. A lot of you have been with us the whole time. Any final words here for the thoughts on the future of the hobby?
I would just like to say thank you so much for having me on tonight. You really do a wonderful job. Going from your inspiration, I do now have a YouTube channel for Sports Sim Magazine. We've only done 2 videos on matchup so far, and I mean, I'm learning. It's a learning curve, and I'm trying. I am. Thank you to everyone who supports the magazine. Thank you to everyone who supports the games. Thank you to everyone who supports anyone's games. Buy games, buy more games, and buy now. We don't know how long everyone's going to be here. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'll get this year in a couple years, I'll buy that season, buy it now and just throw it on the shelf because we just don't know. But I, I know we all experience this joy from this hobby the same way. Um, Thank you all so much for continually being kind and kind to each other. Uh, this is a wonderful hobby with wonderful people, and I'm ecstatic to be a part of it.
Marco, any final thoughts from you? Chat room. Any final thoughts from the chat room here?
I would say I want to echo what ST said. I mean, sure, I have my YouTube channel and all that. I haven't been very active on it the last, year and a half or so because obvious reasons. But what I want to say is I'm very, very grateful for the community as a whole, but in particular, people like you, Dave, and UST, and just guys that welcome everyone into the community because it's brought me so much joy. I'm literally getting emotional. Like it's
Yeah.
brought
Yep.
me so much joy, especially having gone through what I've been through the last couple years. And sometimes the only happiness I got were those 2 hours on the tabletop. And I want people to understand how powerful these games really are. And I kind of started the show off gloom and doom with the young generation and blah blah blah, old man screaming at the cloud. But what's great and what I am so happy about with the future of gaming is it is evolving. We're seeing it. Someone said 89 views on a Dave. You could not pick a worse night to do a stream. I just want you to know that there were 2 Game 7s on tonight. There was a Kentucky Derby that wrapped up at 6:30 or whatever. Like, and yet 89 was. I actually think it was more than that
We
when
had
you topped out here.
93 at one point. We had 93.
93 people took out time on a Saturday night to come hang out.
Wow, that's
This
cool.
community is amazing. It's amazing. Closing thoughts, that's all I have to say.
Yep.
It's you guys are amazing. Everyone in the chat, I love this community. I'm so happy to be a part of it and I just want to see it grow. I just want to see it grow because
Yep.
this hobby's done so much for me and for all of us and I want that to happen for more people.
Yep. I think it's a fun hobby. It's a safe hobby. It's nothing wrong with it. I mean, like ST says, if you want to try a game, try it. You want to buy a season, buy a season. I mean, obviously you don't want to go broke and go into debt over this stuff like anything else. You know what I mean? You want to buy that fancy super sports car if you can't afford it. But every now and then I like to try to support the somebody somewhere and buy a season or buy a game or whatever it is. I try to show it off here on the channel. Um, Again, I think the community is bigger than we think it is. And I think, with the internet and the conventions and the whole bit that we have going on and the YouTube channels, a lot of people have come over from video games from my video game group and saw me playing these games and I'll play some of these games. No, not all the time, but they do. And so I just think that I think it's a bigger community than we think. I really do. And I still think, as many people listen to Digital to Dice and watch my channel, I still think there's so many more that still never heard of the show or heard of the channel that play these games. And maybe they never will, but they're out there, you know, and so that's the fun thing about it. Um, so thank you so much for coming by. Oh, Dave Little's got 4,500 in his Facebook group.
Ooh.
Yeah, yep, yep, he is. He's doing well over there.
I'm sorry again for the Michigan Ohio State game, Dave. I'm just calling the place.
But this was a fun time tonight. I kind of knew this would be a big stream. I didn't expect that many people watching tonight, but they did. I didn't expect to go this long, but we had a lot of great guests on, a lot of things we needed to talk about, a lot of things we wanted to get off our chest and feel out the community. That was the other thing. I wanted to see what the chat room had to say. If they all come in and thought it was doom and gloom too, but for the most part, a lot of people come in and were pretty positive about what's going on here and how it's getting done and the new games that are coming out. And again, it's not a competition. I mean, we all play a ton of different games, and we have our favorites, But I mean, I don't play one game. I play, 50 games, And if the new one comes out, I want to try it, And there's times that I tell people all the time, I kind of feel bad sometimes that when I pick a certain game to play, that someone might be like, well, why aren't you playing my game? I have that guilt sometimes, but it's like I can only play one game at a time, and I have my go-to games for certain reasons, and sometimes I play this, and sometimes I play that. So, but I think people understand that that's I play a whole bunch of different games, and it's at some point I'll get everyone's game on the channel and back on here and play in the whole bit. So anyway, but Parallel says keep those magazines coming. Yep.
Thank you.
And so anyway, so I want to say thank you so much. Oh, Brian's got one more thing. Last week, the owner and DM of my local gaming school played a round of History Maker golf with him. Nice. I almost pulled that out the other day. I did. I had History Maker in my hand. I said, I need to play some golf here. I need to try the APBA golf again. Now that I played a lot more APBA and I played some APBA Master Baseball, I'm kind of wondering if the golf will click this time for me, Seems like when I go back to a game for the second time, it clicks a little bit better. So that is that. So anyway, tomorrow night we'll be back on again. Not a long show like this, but Michael and I will come on tomorrow night, give you an update on D2D Con because we're 2 weeks away from that. And if you can believe it, I've been biting my nails and my toenails. I've been nervous about pulling this off, but I think things will fall into place. I hope. So we're gonna go over what we're gonna try to do. Again, it's just going to be wide open, but I want to make sure everybody can get in, set up their tables, and then the general public can come in and hang out and play their games, and we'll introduce everybody that has something on a table. That's kind of the plan. So we'll go over what we're looking to do, a couple of the volunteers we might need, getting raffle tickets and the whole thing like that. So we'll go over all that. But anyway, Dave Little said sports simulations, I think, over on Facebook. Let me look real quick. Sports simulations and replays is what it's called. Yeah, sports simulations and replays. 4.5K members. Yep. Yep. So great job. Yeah, and I think it's going to be fun. Going to see some people again, meet some new people, play a ton of games, learn a bunch of games. That's the fun thing about these things. Is sitting down with the people and learning games. It's really fun. Even if you don't play a full game. Me and ST played what? 10, 15, 20 minutes of APBA football.
Yeah.
We talk about that 10 or 15 minutes of APBA football like it was, like we played all day,
That's true.
But we had a good time. But anyway, I'll wrap this up here real quick and then we'll say goodbye. That you've been listening to the Digital to Dice podcast, a very special live version here on May 3rd, Saturday night. We've had many different guests on here. ST's joined me the whole way. We had Marco Scholar on. We had Jeff from APBA Football. We had Clay on. We had Dwayne Martz. And I think that's everybody that we had on here popping on from time to time. And we had a fully loaded chat room here as we were live on YouTube tonight talking about the future of our hobby, what people think, what are their predictions for their future, what's the situation we are in now. So we talked about all that tonight with you guys here. So ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is the website, digitaltodice.com is the website, 978-751-DICE is the text line, digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email, and over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And this was officially episode 260 of the Digital Today's podcast. That's a lot of episodes, and that is that. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And chat room, thanks for joining us too. And we shall talk to you all later. You guys can hang out for a second while I sign off, but I'm going to hit the button here. And thanks for a great chat tonight, guys. And maybe we'll talk to you tomorrow night and get you caught up on D to D 25. Bye bye.